225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Cur weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to
stop.
You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
To warm family brunches.
from football to tennis in the car,
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
We love Great Britain. We love its history, its culture and its tradition, and that's why we're so proud to be part of GB News.
You look genuinely emotional. Oh, come here.
GB News does pay attention to those who are ignored by the mainstream media. The majority of this country whose forefathers fought and died to maintain liberty, to fight for freedom of speech.
The rule of law, the rights of property and democracy. This is the heritage that our country should be so proud of.
Which of course includes our Christian heritage. There's been a huge resurgence in the number of people going to church. Perhaps they're not finding what they're looking for, and they're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more truthful, a bit more akin to Britain's Christian heritage.
That's right, get ready, because the most exciting night in general election history starts now!
Good afternoon, it's midday on Saturday the 23rd of May. This is the weekend on GB News. Now, GB News can confirm that 79 small boat migrants have arrived in Dover this morning, with hundreds more on their way amid Britain's scorching heat wave. With 400 illegal arrivals yesterday, just how many can we expect to cross over this boiling hot bank holiday weekend?
Yes, certainly hot. And here in Dover, those 79 small boat migrants arrived here in the last hour or so. They set off from France just after 8 o'clock this morning. Another small boat is in the channel at the moment, making its way into British waters as people smugglers look to take advantage of this warm weather.
It's not just the chaos in the Channel, but it's chaos at Dover, a few feet from where Will Godley is standing, as Brits face almost 5-hour wait. 5 hours in this heat. Impossible. And how are Brits coping across the country as the weather temperature soars?
Really enjoying it. Feels like I'm on my summer holidays.
I won't be out and about too much, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big lover of the heat.
I've got water with me and I've got suntan lotion, so yeah, I think it's fine.
It probably will be too hot later, yes. And then we'll just have to retire to a bar and stay there for the rest of the evening.
We love talking about the weather, don't we, in Britain? Now, the future of another UK overseas territory could be at risk, with Cypriots warning the Mediterranean island must not become a target amid the war in Iran. In an exclusive report for GB News, Greeks and Turks have raised deep concerns about the UK's running of its sovereign territories, including RAF Akrotiri.
To grow the economy, and we have. We promised to cut inflation, and we have. And we promised to cut the cost of living, and we are.
Families could face tourist taxes of up to £300 just for staying in the UK on a staycation, as councils across England look to cash in on summer holidays. Rachel Reeves promised this week she's on a mission to grow the economy.
Yes, last week we heard that Rachel Reeves is planning to give tax cuts to ordinary working families across the summer holidays, but now regional mayors are planning a tax grab for those very same families. Is the Treasury giving away with one hand but taking with the other?
And Jeremy Clarkson and farming's biggest stars are giving the traditional country show a modern makeover at the Great British Farm Fest.
Yes, it's Glastonbury meets the Royal Show here today in Warwickshire. In scorching hot temperatures, we've had sheep shearing, Ford Ranger racing. What better way to celebrate British agriculture? I'll have all the latest from Warwickshire later today.
It's been reported that the famous Red Arrows will fly with just 7 aircraft rather than 9 for the majority of their displays until at least 2030, because guess what? Their engines are so old. I'll be joined by their former training instructor. I'm Christopher Hope, standing in for Dawn Neeson, and the weekend starts right here. Welcome to the weekend. Dawn's not here. She may be worried about tomorrow's relegation clash. Will West Ham go down or Tottenham Hotspur? Let's not go there for her, shall we? I'm a Liverpool fan, and I'm hoping we can try and qualify for the Champions League by 5th place this year, which isn't great, but I would rather be us than a Spurs or West Ham fan this weekend. Hope you're having a great weekend out there. It is boiling hot outside, but it's quite cool in GB News' studios here. I've already been out and about this morning. I've been running a 5K park run. There I am with our dog Gladys. Gladys did 1 poo on the round today, so delayed me slightly, 29 minutes, 13 seconds, so below 30 minutes for the 5K. Have you been running a park run? Let me know how you found it. You're sending me your time, I'll read them out on air, no problem at all. And I want to say a good shout out to some superfans I met in the pub last night with my colleague and friend Martin Daubney. There are Carl and Helen. They marked their 22nd year wedding anniversary yesterday. They absolutely love GB News. Helen even records Patrick's show to watch at 6 in the morning the next day before she goes to work. These people are brilliant people. They are part of the GB News family, and it was so good to meet them last night for a drink, completely out of the blue. Wonderful. But this show is nothing without you and your views, and Carl and Helen, whoever you are, get in touch. Send me your thoughts on all the stories we'll be discussing today by going to gbnews.com/your say and join the conversation, or even scan the cue card you're seeing to the right of your screen. But before we go any further, here's the news with Bethany Elson.
Thank you and good afternoon. Your top stories from the GB Newsroom just after midday. Almost 100 migrants have arrived into Dover on a border force vessel after setting off from Belgium this morning. Another boat carrying a similar number is expected to arrive within the hour. It comes after 400 migrants were recorded crossing the English Channel yesterday. The surge in Channel crossings is expected this weekend as a heatwave hits the UK. Well, temperatures could be higher than the Seychelles, with highs of 30 degrees expected in the south of England, following the hottest day of the year so far yesterday. Britain is also forecast to see its hottest May day on record on Monday, with temperatures reaching 33 degrees across the south and the Midlands. The UK Health Security Agency has issued amber heat health alerts for the Midlands, the east and southeast of England and London until Wednesday evening, with those aged 65 and over at risk and an increased demand on health and social care services. Meanwhile, the hotter weather could impact travel, with tens of thousands planning to get away this bank holiday weekend. And the Port of Dover is warning drivers to expect long queues and delays amid new EU border checks. In other news, at least 90 people have been killed in an explosion at a mine in the Shanxi province, with officials warning that number is expected to rise. Chinese state media reports 247 workers were on site when the gas explosion occurred. President Xi Jinping has urged authorities to spare no effort in treating the injured and in the search and rescue mission, and has ordered an investigation into the cause. It's reported the UK government has pitched the creation of a single market for goods with the European Union. According to the Guardian newspaper, Cabinet Office Minister Michael Ellam presented the idea to deepen the UK's economic relationship to the EU during recent visits to Brussels. But the paper claims EU officials rejected the idea and instead suggested a customs union. That, though, would be impossible under Sir Keir Starmer's red lines after saying he wouldn't rejoin the EU or customs union in his lifetime. Both sides will hold a summit in July. And a new report is warning the UK is facing an economic catastrophe unless it adapts to a generation rewired by smartphones. The former Minister Alan Milburn's review, to be released next week, examines why almost 1 million 16 to 24-year-olds are not in employment, education or training. It's expected to blame smartphones and social media for rising levels of anxiety, depression and neurodiversity. Speaking to The Times, he rejected claims that young people are so-called snowflakes and said the country's at risk of writing off an entire generation. And conservationists are warning more than 70,000 man-made barriers are disrupting rivers across the UK. Wild Fish claims weirs and dams harm wildlife, trap pollution and block fish migration. The charity says many of the structures are old and present a huge problem for river health, but that removing them could bring fish back within hours. You're up to date for now. I'll be back with more in half an hour.
Thanks very much for a great show. Thank you, Bethany. Now, over in the back in the south coast of the UK, there are big concerns about the crossings of the small boats. It's the second of at least 4 days of good weather where UK authorities are bracing for channel crossings. Joining me now is GB News national reporter Will Godley, our man with the telescope. Will Godley, we're just trying to find Will Godley, get him now. There he is, Will. Will, what are you seeing down there? It's obviously boiling hot. We're seeing these boats arrive. What's the latest?
Well, Chris, good afternoon to you. It's certainly warm weather here, and the people smugglers making the most of the weather and the calm seas to launch their crossings this morning. 2 boats made that crossing, one still in the water at the moment. It's just making its way to the halfway mark where the French Navy hands over the vessel, the small boat, to the British Border Force. It's slowed down its progress slightly, whether that's because winds have picked up or there's been some complications that we don't yet know, but that boat still in the waters there. But at the moment, here in the port of Dover, there are 79 small boat migrants who have just arrived here in the last hour or so. They are being processed at the moment by Border Force officials, and the people on that boat set off from the French beach of Gravelines just after 8 o'clock this morning. It was 2 hours in the small boat to the halfway mark in the channel, where they then were intercepted by the British Border Force vessel Ranger, and then they moved, they then had their crossing down here, and they were brought here where they are now. And so that's where they are at the moment. The other boat in there likely to be here in the next in the next 90 minutes or so. And that boat making its journey slightly differently or so. It set off from the Belgian beaches this morning, travelled down the French and Belgian coast where it picked up more passengers in Dunkirk. And that's increasingly what's happening now as the French and Britain have signed that multi-million-pound deal, seeing the French really crack down on the boats leaving France, more of them setting off from Belgium now. And that's what's happening today with the boat in the water at the moment. The Belgian authorities say this time last year, in fact all of last year, they hadn't had any boats leaving France. Now they've had 400 people they've intercepted. No doubt with this warm weather continuing, there'll be more as crossings set to continue. More small boat migrants set to be here in the next couple of hours or so, as that one boat making its way at the moment, Chris.
Will Goddy, thank you for that update, and please stay there with your telescope. Let us know what else is happening throughout the show. Will it be a record today? We'll wait and see. And of course, away from where Will's standing, there are huge queues of tourists trying to leave the UK for their half-term break, or their wit break, I should call it. And sitting there in the hot traffic is, of course, we've got these migrants being ushered in by the UK Border Force. Joining me now is the former Independent Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration, John Vine. John Vine, yet again, a reminder, isn't it, of this lingering problem. Why can't we control our southern border?
Well, good afternoon, Chris. Yes, it's a real problem, isn't it? I mean, the people who've been looking forward to the weather, apart from us, are the people smugglers who have obviously planned these crossings many days ago, knowing that the weather's going to be good. But yes, the problem is no country should really rely on the weather to be, to dictate whether people cross our borders or otherwise. It shows that really enforcement alone is not going to solve this issue. Greater enforcement is a good thing. Greater cooperation with the Belgians and the French is obviously important for, Border Force and the police services. But the problem here is that we're dealing with the symptom and not the problem itself. And whilst there are pull factors bringing people to the UK, this trade will continue.
Do you think those pull factors might be mitigated as the government moves migrants out of hotels and into communities in houses of multiple occupation and some more in army camps? Do you think that will work? Because that's all they've got, frankly, to try and dissuade people from making this dangerous journey.
Well, I think that might mitigate the feeling in some communities that, people are being housed near them, of whom they've no idea where they're from and what their background is, and whether, in fact, they've ever been involved in criminality. I think it'll mitigate that fear. I don't think it'll mitigate this actual trade. What we've got here are people making lots of money out of providing a service for people who want to come to Britain for whatever reason. And, unless there's a deterrent to prevent that happening in some realistic way, then we'll continue to see this trade occurring. And, the amount of planning and organisation and the speed with which organised crime is changing its tactics to avoid detection is remarkable. We've already spoken on this programme about the rise in the number of boats leaving the Belgian coast, which was really unheard of a few years ago. And it's in direct response, obviously, to what the French and the British have just agreed. So it's a moving feast. I think over the next few days we might see many hundreds of people crossing the Channel in this weather.
It's a constant reminder, of course. We have seen an increase by about 6,000, I think, of people living in government-controlled or supported accommodation, and migrants and the like. What would you do, John Vine, if you were Prime Minister or if you were in the Home Secretary? What would you do to try and stop these crossings?
Well, in terms of enforcement, what I would do immediately is work with the French and the Belgians to close the camps in northern France and try and prevent the organisation of these crossings. I mean, if these crossings have been planned well in advance, there must be intelligence that we can procure from informants, that the British and the French authorities have. we need to really get into the communities where these crossings are being planned. And that's one of the first things I would do. Secondly, I think we need to look at the ways in which people are drawn to the UK and see if we can address, those factors. Many other countries are looking at offshoring in various other parts of the world, to try and reduce the demand from migrants coming to their countries. I think we have to maybe look at some offshoring solution again, and that's something maybe this government perhaps needs to do sooner rather than later.
When you say offshoring, John Vine, do you mean taking migrants who arrive here illegally and then taking them somewhere offshore, wherever that might be, and then processing them there? Or do you mean the Rwanda plan that the Tories had, which is basically deporting them to a part of Africa?
Well, the Rwanda plan obviously fell by the wayside a couple of years ago and was subject to a great deal of challenge. But many other countries are looking at similar schemes. The Italians have had schemes and agreements with countries in Eastern Europe. Many other European countries are looking at, for example, the arrangements that we had with Rwanda to see whether they can take up the accommodation that was originally earmarked for the UK. So whatever it is, and I can't predict might be receptive to this sort of idea, we need some sort of deterrent to put off people from making this crossing in the first place.
John Vine, the former Independent Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration, thank you for joining us today on GB News, and please stay across this for us all weekend. We might come back to you at some point over the weekend, but thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Chris.
Now, moving on, while the Chancellor announced a range of great British summer savings this week, it seems a fresh tax grab could be potentially hitting families as the sunny weather starts to arrive. Families could face a £300 holiday tax on staycations in a bid for struggling councils to fill black holes in their coffers. Around 10 regional mayors in England are considering what's called an overnight visitor levy, which could be devastating for families already dealing with rising bills and the cost of living crisis. I'm joined now by GB News' political correspondent, Olivia Utley. I mean, Olivia, it's not bad enough, the rising cost of living through probably higher inflation this year, soaring costs of petrol. For councils now to whack up the cost of staying in towns in the UK?
Well, absolutely. So what's going on here is 10 of England's 14 regional mayors are considering imposing a levy on staycations. So people coming to some famous beauty spots in the UK, Whitby, Bath among them, would be forced to pay a tax. Now, you often get that in abroad. If you go to France, for example, there are some places where you have to pay a tourist tax. Yep. But I think for lots of people, it will not sit very well being taxed in your own country. Staycations are often more expensive than going abroad for Brits. Accommodation in Cornwall, for example, and train fares can be more expensive than spending a weekend in the Canary Islands. Yeah. So this is going to be a very, very unpopular tax indeed. Chris, the problem is, as we know, during the election campaign back in 2024, Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer painted themselves into a corner. They said that they wouldn't be raising the three main taxes on working people, national insurance, income tax or VAT. But there is not very much headroom at all. And since then, the UK has faced these enormous geopolitical headwinds, including most recently, of course, the Iran war, which has put the pressure on the government even more. But according to the manifesto, Labour cannot break that commitment to raise those three biggest taxes. So what Rachel Reeves is constantly trying to do is find little taxes elsewhere to try and recoup some of the money back. So every day, whenever you hear some good news announcement from Rachel Reeves, this week it was that she would be making it cheaper for a family to go to tourist attractions over the summer, to zoos and to theme parks, etc. Look in the small print, because elsewhere I expect you will find that another tax is being hiked somewhere else.
Is this money paid to councils and then it's spent in the local areas? So is it justified by saying if you charge this to people who are coming here for tourism reasons, then we're going to spend more money on sprucing up the prom or dealing with dog dirt on the street or chewing gum all on the pavement? Is that what it's about? So is the money ring-fenced for local areas? That could be defensible.
Well, that's what local mayors are claiming. They're saying that that money will be used to beef up the attractions for tourists and deal with those bread and butter issues that you're talking about, keeping the streets clean, etc. We'll have to see how it pans out if and when it actually comes into force. Will that money be ring-fenced for local authorities? And I guess the problem is, as we see so often with this government, obviously, if you tax people differently, then people's behaviour changes. And yes, in an ideal world, you might get the same number of people coming to these destinations and raise more tax and be able to spruce up these local areas as these mayors hope. But what you might see is British people thinking, you know what, I wanted to go on holiday to Whitby or whatever, but I'm not going to bother. I'm going to go off to the Canary Islands.
It's turning political. I know that, for example, Reform's Luke Campbell has ruled out taxes in Hull and East Yorkshire. Ben Houchin, the Tory mayor for Tees Valley, he's against the idea. So it may become a political issue, I suppose, locally as well, if other parties are going to go ahead with these taxes.
I suspect it will become a bit of a party political issue, but I think there will be pressure on some of the local mayors, not Labour mayors, if you start seeing Labour mayors imposing these taxes. And if that money does get used for good causes, then there will be pressure on other regional mayors to do the same thing. It'll be fascinating to see what it does to the staycation industry in this country.
Olivia Early, thank you for joining us today, and great show earlier, of course, on GBNews. Thank you for joining us today. Now, a government spokesman says this: the visitor levy will give mayors more power to raise money and invest in their priorities, like improving holiday destinations and growing the local economy, to put more money in people's pockets. The final design of the visitor levy has not yet been decided and will ultimately be up to mayors to decide whether to use it. OK. Time now for the Great British Giveaway. There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win a whopping £76,543.21 in tax-free cash in time for the summer. Here's all the details you need for your chance to make all yours.
£76,543.21 in tax-free cash could be yours this summer. That's totally tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. What would you spend it on? Treat the family and friends to the ultimate summer party, or just relax with enough cash in the bank to make this year your best yet. And remember, because it's totally tax-free cash, you'll get to keep every single penny. So, what are you waiting for? For a chance to win £76,543.21 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
You're watching The Weekend with me, Christopher Hope, in for Dawn Neeson on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. The new leader of Bradford City Council has written to the chair of the independent inquiry into grooming gangs to ask for the entire area to be included in the national inquiry, promising an independent inquiry if the district isn't included. One local MP who's campaigned for an inquiry for years will join me. But after the break. Jeremy Clarkson and farming's biggest stars are giving the traditional country show a modern makeover at the Great British Farm Fest. All of that and more, but you're with GB News, Britain's brilliant #1 news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christies tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the weekend with me, Christopher Hope, in for Dawn Neeson. Now, the UK's biggest country fair and music festival is underway in Warwickshire. The Great British Farm Fest includes 3 days of farming, livestock and good old-fashioned countryside chaos. It's being hosted by that man there, Jeremy Clarkson, Caleb Cooper, Lisa Hogan and other farming stars. GB News entertainment reporter Alex Davis is there and joins us now live from Warwickshire. Alex, how are you? How is it? It's hot. Have you seen Jeremy Clarkson yet?
Yes, I can confirm it is baking. It's incredibly hot, but don't worry, there's plenty of sun cream and shade around. Yes, we've seen Jeremy Clarkson, we've seen Caleb Cooper and a lot of the Clarkson's farm team. Very busy. They were taking part in Ford Ranger racing earlier. And at the moment, just behind me in the Royal Ring, we've got the world's fastest pub, I'm told it's called, where there's, like you said, countryside chaos, to say the least. We unfortunately couldn't grab Jeremy for a word earlier. There are lots of Clarkson's Farm stars here, though, and I was able to catch up with Harriet from season 4 earlier today.
People are just becoming like so distant from farming and actually like the core values of farming and why we do it every day and what we do every day and how hard that the farmers work. So I think shows like today and shows like Clarkson's Farm sort of promote that and show the public exactly what we do so they can back us all the way, because you can't back something if you don't understand it.
And just I know you probably can't sum it up in a sentence, but how has life changed for you since Clarkson's Farm?
It's insane. Honestly, it's crazy. Like, to go from being a nurse who was working, you know, an 8 till 4 job every day in the week to then just being a full-time farmer and getting to do events like today is insane. And I'm so glad that I can advocate for women in farming.
So there you go, that was Harriet there from Clarkson's Farm, and I think The biggest message coming out of today is just to celebrate British farming. We spoke to Adam Henson earlier, who emphasised how important it was for all of us to rally behind British agriculture. They're facing all sorts of challenges right now, and events like this just go forward to celebrate it. The festival itself reckons there will be about 60,000 people here, taking in the food, taking in the music, taking in the activities this weekend. And it's just a fantastic celebration. You had Sophie Ellis-Bextor was on stage last night. Chris Moyles is performing later on today. Sarah Cox later this evening. Alex James from Blur. There is a number of big faces here, all coming out to do one thing, and that's to celebrate British farming.
It's wonderful, Alex. It looks like they've completely kind of rebooted the idea of the countryside show into something which, I mean, the countryside show appeals to a certain demographic, but that appears to what you'll appeal to younger people, really, and it's done with a wink and a smile, isn't it?
Well, the organisers build it as Glastonbury meets the Royal Show, and I think there's no real better way to explain it. There are vendors from up and down the country here, there are musicians from up and down the country here, and you can see the crowds of people there, all getting together in the bake hot sun, enjoying a drink or two, watching all sorts of agricultural, what do they call it, countryside chaos. I think that's the perfect way to put it, and it's all for a great cause, and it just goes to show that now these are the backbone of society, really. If we don't have farmers, we don't have food on our table, and what better way for everybody to come together and celebrate that fact.
100%, and I think we've seen at GB News that attack on farmers with inheritance tax, and it's been changed now, of course, by the government, that almost let us re-engage with the farming community. We need these farmers to grow and produce food for us to eat, and in an increasingly insecure world, we're very glad they're doing it in Britain, or rather us importing it.
Well, yeah, like I said, we were able to speak to Harriet Cowan from Clarkson's Farm earlier. Caleb and Jeremy, like I said, are very busy. I did grab Caleb on his way to one of his events, and he very much just echoed what we've all been saying. You know, Jeremy himself has taken on a shop, a pub, a farm, and all of this from a TV presenter. But what his main mission was to highlight the plight of the real British farmers, and that's what he does fantastically, and that's what Caleb said to me as well. He said the show has changed his life, and things like this just go to show that people get behind them. People want to back British farming.
OK, Alex Davis joining us live from Farmfest in Warwickshire. Thank you, and put some sun cream on. We'll see you later. Thank you very much. Remember, let me know your thoughts on all the stories we've been discussing by going to gbnews.com/yoursay and join the conversation. Send me your part run time today. Mine was 29 minutes, 13 seconds delayed by clearing up Gladys's, mess. Also, scan the QR code on your screens now. Lots more coming up on today's show, of course. The future of another British overseas territory could be at risk, with Cypriots warning that the Mediterranean island of Cyprus must not now become a target amid the war in Iran. Of course, one missile or one drone did hit the UK-based Akua. In an exclusive interview report for GB News, Greeks and Turks have raised what they say are deep concerns about our running of the sovereign territories, including that base, RAF Akua. All of that and more, but I'm Christopher Hope, and you're with GB News, and we, of course, are and will keep being Britain's #1 news channel.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Certainly is shaping up to be quite the sunny weekend for many of us, all courtesy of an area of high pressure that's building in across the UK. There are a few frontal systems around at the moment to start off Saturday. We've seen some cloud clearing off the far southeast of England, and also be aware there'll be some cloud lingering around coastal areas of Wales and the southwest of England, may provide some sea fog and murky conditions in places, but much of England and Wales will hold on to bright sunny skies. And with that though, we are going to see pollen levels rising. We are entering the grass pollen season now, so hay fever sufferers be aware, and UV levels are also going to be quite high. Top temperatures of today around London, over towards Kent, potential for our first 30 degrees Celsius of the day, but widely into the low to mid-20s for many. That other front in the northwest is bringing a touch more cloud for Northern Ireland and Scotland, still around 20 degrees Celsius for parts of Aberdeen and eastern areas, but perhaps a few spots of rain for the Highlands and over the hills here, and temperatures around 13 or 14 degrees Celsius, which is a touch closer towards average for the time of year. Quite breezy in the northwest as well, with that frontal system in play, and the cloud will linger here throughout the night, the rain perhaps turning a bit more persistent. But for much other areas, it is going to be a clear night to come. A few mist and fog patches forming in places, but skies should be pretty clear throughout. Temperatures are a bit of a mix between rural and urban areas. In rural regions, we may drop down into mid-single figures, but most of us in our towns and cities starting off in double digits on Sunday morning. And it's widespread blue skies for the vast majority of us into this second day of the bank holiday weekend. Plenty of fine conditions if you want to get outside, the exception once again being the far northwest of Scotland, where that rain is going to persist right throughout the day and again hold those temperatures back. But temperatures climbing up a little further now in the southeast towards 31 degrees Celsius. There's plenty more sunshine on the cards throughout into Bank Holiday Monday and next week, including now for northern Scotland, and those temperatures really peaking as we head into Monday. Bye-bye.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Back to the weekend with me, Christopher Hope, in for Dawn Neeson, worried about West Ham playing tomorrow, no doubt. But anyway, the future of another British overseas territory could be at risk, with Cypriots warning that the Mediterranean island of Cyprus must not become a target amid the war in Iran. In an exclusive report for GB News, Greeks and Turks have raised deep concerns about Britain's running of its sovereign territories, including RAF Akrotiri on Cyprus and Akelia. The warning comes as Cyprus is heading to the polls this weekend for parliamentary elections, which may explain why the concerns are being raised. Joining me now is a former Tory MP and a former UK British Army soldier, Bob Seeley. Bob, it's great to see you on GB News this hot lunchtime. Have they got a point? Is the idea that we have this sovereign base on Cyprus because we are guaranteeing the safety of Cyprus? And after that drone hit that hangar on RAF Akrotiri at the start of the Iran war, that's been blown out the water.
Chris, well, good afternoon to you and your viewers and listeners. Look, there's obviously politics here because of the elections, but ultimately the problem that we're seeing both here with the Cypriots, with the Argentinians, is if you have the perception of a weak government that continues to run down defence and is not keen to protect British interests or not keen to be seen to be protecting British interests, people will continue to take pops at you and to make capital out of your weakness. Should we have air defence to protect our bases, but also do the Cypriots a favour by protecting their island? For sure, we should, and we should be taking the protection of those bases and the land around it seriously. So they have a point of sorts. But ultimately, what they see is a bunch of left-wing human rights lawyers like Richard Hermer, the Attorney General, and Sir Keir Starmer, who are running our country, but don't seem to be very good at protecting it, don't seem to be very good at investing in defence. And Britain is seen to be weak, both physically weak in terms of our soldiers and sailors and airmen who don't have enough kit, and we don't have enough planes and ships to protect ourselves or our bases, but also politically weak because we have people who seem reluctant to defend us. And the biggest error, Chris, just one final point, absolutely the biggest error which we made in recent months was not standing much more closely with our Gulf allies, as well as the Cypriots, with our Gulf allies when the Iranian war started, regardless or not whether we joined in the attacks, and there was good reason not to. By not standing with our Gulf allies, they turned around and they said to us, what do you think you're doing? We've got defence treaties with you guys. You haven't even got a ship here. You barely got any planes. You've just got a few soldiers. What are you doing? And what about your responsibility to us?
And that's right, it took a long time for HMS Dragon to get to Cyprus to protect Cyprus from any attacks. And surely the deal is we have our aircraft carrier, a sovereign base on Cyprus, but we have to maintain the safety. And we allowed, because of whatever happened, we allowed a drone to strike that hangar on that base, which shows that it wasn't working and we let them down, frankly.
Well, I mean, we're letting ourselves down fundamentally because we need to be protecting our bases. And if people are hitting them, we should be striking them hard back. So I think it's actually about protecting our own because we've got servicemen and women and service families there. And we need to be protecting those people. Yes, we could be doing the island of Cyprus a big favour and getting air defence to protect those people as well. And it wouldn't take a great deal of time and effort to do that and actually start protecting to project a drone defence, which is really important. It's going to be important wherever we have forward deployments, is actually protecting our bases against relatively small drones, which will, are great for delivering a sort of quasi-terrorist profile. They may not do a huge amount of damage, but the perception that we can't even shoot down small drones is very damaging for this country. But Chris, as you say, it's a mixture of actually not having enough physical defence, whether that's in static air defence, whether that's in ships, whether that's in planes, but also having an astonishing lack of political will at the moment. When the Iran war kicked off, the government kept saying to Iran, we're not involved, we're not involved. These were our closest allies, and Iran is an enemy of us. And actually, I think a little bit of a sense of reality as to the situation would have been much more helpful.
But Bob, I just take a step back here. I see these problems emerging because this government doesn't seem to respect or understand what sovereignty is about. And let's not relitigate Brexit, because Brexit was a battle over sovereignty, and it was giving back sovereignty to our parliament, to elected MPs to make a mess of the country or do very well. But either way, we have a chance to kick them out. That is what sovereignty is about, and that's what Brexit is about. But the way the government's behaved over Chagos, it shows that they are willing to trade sovereignty, although in this sense giving sovereignty away of Chagos to Mauritius and paying them for the protest. But I wonder whether that's where it all comes from. That's why sovereignty is back on the agenda.
Chris, I think you make an excellent point. And whether it's the UN, whether it's the European Union, whether it's Starmer saying he prefers Davos and the global and hanging out with the global elites in Switzerland to being in Parliament, or heaven above being in his constituency, or whether it's international law, some sort of nebulous concept of international law as interpreted by left-wing human rights lawyers like Starmer or like our dreadful Attorney General, Sir Richard Hermer. You're right. These people, whether it's the left-wing politicians, whether it's too many Foreign Office officials, or whether it's Whitehall, they seem to think that the British national interest is something they should be ashamed of, something that's a bit dirty, something that's a bit parochial. And actually what they work towards is a nebulous, morally pure version of human rights, or where Western liberal democracies are always at fault, or international law, where, our ex-empire is always under attack. So you're absolutely right. These are people who don't put Britain first. And I'm really hoping that whatever happens after this government, Chris, we have a government, whether it's Reform or Conservatives, that actually have a Britain first strategy in terms of defence, in terms of foreign policy, because, my goodness, we need it.
Well, Bob, are you going to come back as MP? But I'll ask you.
Let's see. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
OK. Well, of course, Lord Hermer and the like, they're not here to defend themselves. They would say probably that they thought that the UK sovereignty over the Chagos Islands was untenable because of various court rulings. That is contested by those who fought that treaty. Now, the MOD said in a statement that the status of the sovereign base areas is not in question. Our bases in Cyprus play a crucial role in supporting the safety of British citizens and our allies in the Mediterranean and in the Middle East. We've been deploying additional defensive capabilities to Cyprus since January, including radar systems, counter-drone systems, additional fast jets and hundreds of extra air defence personnel to protect our people and our interests. A spokesman for the Cypriot government declined to comment to GB News. OK, you're with me, Christopher Hope. On GB News, this is the weekend, of course, is a hot one. Lots more coming up on today's show. Pep Guardiola, the manager of Manchester City, has confirmed he's leaving the club after a decade, while Michael Carrick has been confirmed as a new Manchester United boss. Now, if you're in search of some holiday sun, and frankly, why bother? It's hot in Britain this weekend. Here's the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
A lot of sunny and hot weather across the Med and Western Europe at the moment, especially for Spain and France. Very showery, however, with low pressure close to Greece and Turkey. Long spells of rain for Turkey. Greek islands mostly sheltered from the showers, but heavy downpours for mainland Greece. 1 or 2 showers for Italy, but we come to Iberia and France, and it's unusually hot and sunny during the next few days. Temperatures peaking in France into the mid to high 30s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Neil, my partner, I don't drive anymore, but my partner Neil was driving, and we'd been to have a manicure and a pedicure, which one always does on a particular day. And we were coming back home, and we would turn the corner onto a busy road, which is a dual carriageway near the Tower of London. And Neil suddenly stopped behind a car, which was letting some people off into a hotel. And then I said, move, because the car moved in front. And Neil said, it's dead. There's nothing happening. And the whole car just sort of stopped. And I tried to open the door, and I couldn't open the door. I tried to open the window, couldn't open the window. We couldn't do the hazard lights. And cars were zooming down this road at about 40 to 50 miles an hour. Now, it was a 20-mile-an-hour limit to this road, which is important, because Neil rang the insurance. The insurance gave the RAC a number, and we then communicated with them. And this was at 5:45 in the evening. And they said, we'll be with you between 12 and 2 a.m. So we panicked. There was a terrible panic because cars were zooming down, moving out into the road to not bump into us. And I was really panicking. And what happened next was that when we decided we couldn't get out, I then rang the police. Now, the police, I spoke to this girl, and this police girl said, no, we can't come and collect you, I'm afraid. I said, I'm terrified. And she said, no, sorry, we can't come and collect you. It was just so frustrating.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Cur weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the weekend with me, Christopher Hope, in for Dawn Neeson. Now it's time to go through all the latest sports news with broadcaster Aidan McGee. Aidan, welcome. London's full of red shirts and gold shirts. Why is that?
I saw this morning at about 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
They made a weekend of it. Why not? I remember the Borough fans being down here in the late 90s regularly with the League Cup, FA Cup final, everything like that. Hull,
so what's going on in London?
Well, yeah, there is indeed. I mean, I was here for Hull as well when Dean Windass scored that goal 2008 against Bristol City. But yeah, today the build-up. This is the 40th anniversary of the playoffs. Something I've followed meticulously since 1987 when Sunderland were relegated by Gillingham. And I think those early years of the playoffs were extraordinary, Chris, because I think without those fantastic games we saw, it wouldn't have lasted today. But there's been no build-up quite like this one. I was in a restaurant the other week in Bromley, and I heard these people, Southampton fans, next to me saying, "Oh, I better not book my hotels because we might get kicked out of the competition." I was that close to saying, stop being ridiculous. You're not going to get kicked out. This is the FA acting.
But they have been. Well, why is that?
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe. Well, they spied. They were proven that they admitted spying on Middlesbrough at their Rockcliffe Hall. Training ground up in just outside Darlington, and they were banged to rights. The manager has since been linked to it. It wasn't just a rogue intern going up there and doing his thing. They reckon he was actually broadcasting on his phone back to base. Now, I've spoken to people in football, and I've made my own deductions myself, and lots of people are telling me that this is really harsh because you cannot deduce too much from watching a half an hour of training. You really can't.
It's against the rules, though.
It is against the rules, but how do you go from 2019, when the fine was £200,000 to Leeds United, Marcelo Bielsa actually paid that fine himself, to 7 years later, Southampton losing the opportunity to gain £200 million. Now, I feel sorry for the players because apparently they didn't know anything about it. It was Flynn Downs, the former West Ham midfielder who now plays for Southampton, came out and said, "Oh, we love this manager, Tondo Eckhart, because he seems to know the..."
And the £200 million is the benefit of going into the Premier League.
That's what
I was there when Luton beat Coventry in May
2023.
And
that was
an unbelievable game. And also, it's a big day out for fans.
It's
on a massive scale.
It's life-changing. It's the richest football match in the world, and I count the World Cup final in that as well. So absolutely extraordinary.
Well, best luck in that game. Now, moving on, England's squad's been named.
Yes, indeed. Yes, some surprises in there. I mean,
are you happy about this?
Not completely happy, but I think that we brought this manager in to do a particular job, and he's made his decisions. We have to back him. So that means that if he fancies Dan Burn, if he fancies Jed Spence of Tottenham, who could get relegated tomorrow, if he fancies Ivan Toney, who has been knocking him in the Saudi League, but it's hardly Premier League level, if he fancies Noni Madueke, who's only started 23 games, if he fancies John Stones, who started... How many games do you think John Stones has played for Manchester City in the last 2 years since the Euro final?
Yeah.
How many do you think? How many do you think?
I don't know.
19.
Not
enough.
So no Harry Maguire. No Trent
Alexander-Arnold. Again, Phil Foden was left out. I'm doing a piece at the moment for another company talking about the number 10s, how the glut of number 10s that we have. And, it's quite extraordinary. We have so much talent there, but Phil Foden hasn't made the cut. Cole Palmer scored in the final last time.
Too many players in the same position.
That's the problem. You get that now and again. Let's listen to Thomas Tuchel now. Here's how he defended his selections yesterday at the press conference.
I think from day one we were very clear that we are trying to select and build the best possible team, which is not necessarily to select and collect the 26 most talented players. Teams win championships. It's as simple as that. And what we are trying to achieve in summer can only be achieved as a team.
OK, that's Thomas Tuchel explaining why he's done it, and I think, frankly, he'll either be a genius or it'll be a disaster.
How many times have we put England players into the squad, crowbarred them in because when they're half fit? Beckham, Owen, Rooney, even Harry Kane 2 years ago, he palpably was not 100% fit, and it showed because his potency in the big games was missing.
But it's a cop-out. It's easier for the headlines because everybody expects him to play, but he's been very brave here, Tuchel.
He's thought about it. You cannot say he hasn't thought about it. He made a very robust defence of his selections yesterday.
But it's been a big week for European players. Let's have a look at a certain fan celebrating the Aston Villa win. Now, it is so good. Now, radio listeners will not know that is our future king, Prince William, singing as a Villa fan after their win. It's great, isn't it, when you see... And that you couldn't have better PR if you're Prince William.
Incredibly, my friend, a guy called Matt Kendrick, who runs the Villa podcast, a very successful one, he just walked up to Prince William. Prince William shouted out, "Matt, And then went and had a chat with him, and he knew his name, he knew everything about Villa. Extraordinary stuff.
OK. Aidan McGee, thank you, and good luck to all the clubs playing today. I'm sure you'll do very well. Well, you're with me, Christopher Hope, on GB News. Lots more coming up on the show, but first, let's take a look at your weather. Here's a clue. It's boiling hot outside.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Certainly is shaping up to be quite the sunny weekend for many of us, all courtesy of an area of high pressure that's building in across the UK. There are a few frontal systems around at the moment to start off Saturday. We've seen some cloud clearing off the far southeast of England, and also be aware there'll be some cloud lingering around coastal areas of Wales and the southwest of England, may provide some sea fog and murky conditions in places, but much of England and Wales will hold on to bright sunny skies. And with that though, we are going to see pollen levels rising. We are entering the grass pollen season now, so hay fever sufferers be aware, and UV levels are also going to be quite high. Top temperatures of today around London, over towards Kent, potential for our first 30 degrees Celsius of the day, but widely into the low to mid-20s for many. That other front in the northwest is bringing a touch more cloud for Northern Ireland and Scotland, still around 20 degrees Celsius for parts of Aberdeen and eastern areas, but perhaps a few spots of rain for the highlands and over the hills here, and temperatures around 13 or 14 degrees Celsius, which is a touch closer towards average for the time of year. Quite breezy in the northwest as well, with that frontal system in play, and the cloud will linger here throughout the night, the rain perhaps turning a bit more persistent. But for much of other areas, it is going to be a clear night to come. A few mist and fog patches forming in places, but skies should be pretty clear throughout. Temperatures are a bit of a mix between rural and urban areas. In rural regions, we may drop down into mid-single figures, but most of us in our towns and cities are starting off in double digits on Sunday morning. And it's widespread blue skies for the vast majority of us into this second day of the bank holiday weekend. Plenty of fine conditions if you want to get outside, the exception once again being the far northwest of Scotland, where that rain is going to persist right throughout the day and again hold those temperatures back. But temperatures climbing up a little further now in the southeast towards 31 degrees Celsius. There's plenty more sunshine on the cards throughout into Bank Holiday Monday and next week, including now for northern Scotland, and those temperatures really peaking as we head into Monday. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Are you dreaming of a ton of tax-free cash this summer? We want to make that dream come true with a stunning £76,543 and 21 pence in cash to spend however you like. Put a new car on the drive or just relax in the knowledge that this year we've got your back. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christies Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christies Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
The late edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christies tonight, late edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, late edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good afternoon, it's 1 p.m. on Saturday the 23rd of May. This is The Weekend on GB News with me, Christopher Hope. Now, GB News can confirm that 79 small boat migrants have arrived in Dover in the past few hours, with hundreds more on the way amid the UK's scorching bank holiday heatwave. With 400 illegal arrivals yesterday, just how many can we expect across this weekend?
Yeah, those 79 small boat migrants arriving here in the port of Dover a little bit earlier on this afternoon, brought here on board a Border Force vessel, as there is another Border Force vessel heading here with up to 100 small boat migrants on board, as the people smugglers look to make the most of this bank holiday warm weather.
Now, it's been reported that the French authorities have suspended new European Union border checks at the port of Dover after they caused gridlock, as you can see on your screen, on the first bank holiday weekend since an introduction, as Brits face an almost 5-hour wait in boiling hot temperatures in their cars just to get to France. Ridiculous. And how are Brits across the UK coping in this hot weather?
Really enjoying it. Feels like I'm on my summer holidays.
I won't be out and about too much, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big lover of the heat.
I've got water with me and I've got suntan lotion, so yeah, I think it's fine.
It probably will be too hot later, yes. And then we'll just have to retire to a bar and stay there for the rest of the evening.
We do love talking about the weather, don't we, in our country? Now, it's been reported that UK officials are suggesting establishing a single market for goods with the EU as part of the next phase of its Brexit reset. But we were told to clear off by the UK. Is this another embarrassment for the government?
To grow the economy, and we have. We promised to cut inflation, and we have. And we promised to cut the cost of living, and we are.
Families could face tourist taxes of up to £300 on UK staycations as councils across England look to cash in on summer holidays. Rachel Reeves promised this week that she's on a mission to grow the economy. And the famous Red Arrows, there they are, will fly with just 7 aircraft rather than 9 for the majority of their displays until at least 2030 because their engines are too old. I'll be joined by their former training instructor. I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News' The Weekend. This show is, of course, nothing without you and your views. Let me know what you think of all the stories we're discussing today, and even your best park run time like mine. Mine was 29 minutes, 13 seconds. Did you beat me? gbnews.com/your say and join the conversation, or scan the QR code to the right of your screen. Here's some views already. BD says that the tourist tax is common in lots of countries, although he always thought that seaside towns and tourist towns should charge a few % of tax if that allows to invest in the infrastructure. I think that's right. The problem I would always have with taxes taken locally, that might mean the government stops giving money centrally to those areas, and in fact, net, it won't benefit them. So if it does invest in a new streetscape or the cleaning up pavements or anything, that is a good idea if that happens. Now, Tim on Farmers says this, that the Devon Country Show had 10 Farmer Day yesterday. Farmers don't get it easy, so let's celebrate them. And we are mentioning the Devon Country Show. That was yesterday and Tim was there. Well done, Devon. Of course, we're at Farm Fest throughout the show with our colleague Alex. And on the tourism tax again, Sharon says she feels sorry for the hospitality businesses where this charge may be implemented. It's a matter of principle. She says they choose where they go very carefully. Well, give me your view on tourist tax. Is it right? Is it right that if the money is spent in local areas, it may improve them? Anyway, here's our latest headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Good afternoon. Your top stories from the GB Newsroom at 1:04. Almost 100 migrants have arrived into Dover on a Border Force vessel after 2 small boats set off from Belgium this morning. Another Border Force vessel carrying a similar number is expected to arrive shortly. It's after 400 migrants were recorded crossing the English Channel yesterday. The surge in Channel crossings is expected this weekend as a heatwave hits the UK. Well, temperatures could be higher than the Seychelles today, with highs of 30 degrees expected in the south of England, following the hottest day of the year so far yesterday. Britain is also forecast to see its hottest May day on record on Monday, with temperatures reaching 33 degrees across the south and the Midlands. The UK Health Security Agency has issued amber heat health alerts for the Midlands, the east and southeast of England and London until Wednesday evening, with those aged 65 and over at risk and an increased demand on health and social care services. Meanwhile, in the last hour, France has suspended extra EU border checks at the port of Dover after delays reached 5 hours. More travel disruption is expected elsewhere as tens of thousands try to get away for the bank holiday. GB News' Tara Goodsell asked people in the capital how they're enjoying the hot weather.
I really enjoy it. I mean, we don't get it very often, do we? So we've got to make the most.
Apologies for that. In other news, at least 90 people have been killed in an explosion at a mine in the Shanxi province, with officials warning that number is expected to rise. Chinese state media reports 247 workers were on site when the gas explosion occurred. President Xi Jinping has urged authorities to spare no effort in treating the injured and in the search and rescue mission, and has ordered an investigation into the cause. Executives of the company responsible for the mine have been detained. It's reported the UK government has pitched the creation of a single market for goods with the European Union. According to the Guardian newspaper, Cabinet Office Minister Michael Elham presented the idea to deepen the UK's economic relationship to the EU during recent visits to Brussels. The paper claims EU officials rejected it and instead suggested a customs union. But that goes beyond Sir Keir Starmer's red lines after he said he wouldn't rejoin the EU or customs union in his lifetime. Both sides will hold a summit in July. And a new report is warning the UK is facing an economic catastrophe unless it adapts to a generation rewired by smartphones. The former Minister Alan Milburn's review, to be released next week, examines why almost 1 million 16 to 24-year-olds are not employed, education or training. It's expected to blame smartphones and social media for rising levels of anxiety, depression and neurodiversity. Speaking to The Times, he rejected claims that young people are so-called snowflakes and said the country is at risk of writing off a whole generation. You're up to date for now. I'll be back with more in half an hour.
Thanks, Bethany. Great stuff. Now let's get stuck into today's topics. Hundreds of migrants have arrived in the UK amid the heatwave. GB News can reveal this follows the illegal arrival of almost 400 small boat migrants yesterday. Those are the latest pictures on your screen now. This is the second day of at least 4 days of gorgeous, boiling hot weather where UK authorities are expecting more channel crossings. Joining me now is GB News national reporter Will Godley, who is on the White Cliffs of Dover with his telescope. Will.
Yeah, Chris, I don't actually really need a telescope because we're that close to the port of Dover here. Already this morning we've seen a Border Force vessel Ranger dock here with a boatload of small boat migrants. They intercepted a small boat in the channel about 10 o'clock this morning, brought them here. They arrived just after 11 o'clock, 79 migrants on board who are now being processed in a marquee just behind where I'm standing. And that small boat set off from the Gravellines beach just after 8 o'clock this morning. Took about 2 hours, escorted by French Navy to get into British waters. There's a second boatload of migrants also on their way here at the moment. They're currently being transported here on the Border Force Defender vessel. It's about 30 minutes out from here in Dover, and we'll bring you those pictures when we get it. But that boat took a little bit longer to make the crossing because it set off from Belgium, and that's increasingly what we're seeing at the moment. Boats having to take off, get into the water from Belgium because the French authorities, after that deal Britain signed with France, making it much harder for small boats to be launched from their beaches. So this boat with these migrants coming in the next half an hour or so set off from Belgium this morning, travelled down the coastline before then stopping in the shallows by a beach in Dunkirk. More people getting on board and then making the crossing to British waters, again escorted by French Navy to where they are now on board this Border Force vessel, and they'll be docking here later on this afternoon. Not everybody, though, has been as lucky as that. There was at least one thwarted crossing this morning on the beaches of Dunkirk. Footage we've seen shows migrants going back into the dunes because either, for whatever reason, the boat couldn't set off, whether it was engine failure or whether it was down to French authorities slashing the boats. Either way, those people there on that beach didn't set sail today. No doubt they'll be looking to make the journey in the coming few days as this warm weather is set to continue. But although the warm weather is continuing, and yesterday almost 400 small boat migrants arrived here on board 6 boats, the numbers arriving have fallen dramatically compared to previous years. Up until this weekend, Chris, the numbers were 44% lower than they had been this time last year, and they're down 23% compared to 2024. And the last crossing before yesterday was 9th of May, so some time ago, with very little, almost 2 weeks here, with very little traffic here. The government would no doubt say that's because their plan of stopping the boats is working. Experts say it could be down to small boat parts not arriving in France. It could be down to migration patterns. It could also be down to the weather, and the weather here at the moment is continuing, likely to see more crossings over the coming few days, but we're by nowhere near those busiest times we do see on busiest days where over 1,000 cross the channel. At the moment today, 79 have arrived here and up to 100 on their way, should be docking in the next half an hour or so.
OK, and we'll take those pictures live when they come to us. And Will Godley, if you can just, I'm sure you can see over the camera possibly, those enormous queues of tourists trying to get to France, being held up by the European Union's insistence on fingerprinting Brits before they go across. How big is that queue? Is it moving? There are reports that the French have lifted that requirement to have those fingerprints being taken.
Yeah, Chris, those reports that the French authorities operating in the port of Dover dropping those requirements, and as a result of that, processing times have improved. The port of Dover have said in the last few minutes that processing times fallen now to 50 minutes. It was over 2 hours a few hours ago, and as a result of that, traffic now moving much easier. In fact, the roads here looking rather empty. There's not the gridlock traffic. Roads are moving. There's, of course, the long queues of lorries that you always get here, but in terms of holiday traffic, that seems to be moving far quicker.
Of course, if you're stuck in that queue, tell me what it's like. It must be pretty hot. gbnews.com/your say. But Will Godley, thank you for joining us, and we'll be back to you as soon as you see That Border Force vessel coming to sight with more migrants. We'll be, of course, straight back to that with live pictures. Joining us now is international security and border control expert Henry Bolton. Henry, thank you for joining us today on GB News. Again, it's an insult, frankly, to the government, to Brits, that we see these migrants crossing and then collected, of course, as I suppose they must be for human rights reasons, by Border Force vessels.
Indeed, and it's a scandal of immense proportions that the British government has still failed. This one and the previous one, governments plural, have failed to address this problem, Chris. The bottom line is, and I keep repeating this, and I keep repeating it because until somebody in government actually hears and starts to listen, nothing's going to happen. That as long as the United Kingdom makes itself or continues to allow itself to be an attractive destination for these people, they will continue to come. People do not come to the United Kingdom because they don't want to. People come to the United Kingdom because it is where they want to go. They are not being coerced to come to the United Kingdom. It's a matter of choice, and it's a matter of choice because it's attractive. And what we're seeing in terms of Belgium and the movements from Belgium is a preemptive move, really, by the organised crime syndicates and so on to diversify the methods by which they can bring people across. They can meet the demand of the economic migrants who are trying to get to the UK illegally. They see efforts from the French side and the UK side, not really operational or practical results, but at least some sort of talk of efforts to interdict the movement from France. So they're diversifying. They will continue to do that, and they will continue. It's rather like a balloon. If you push your finger into one place, it's going to bulge out somewhere else, and that's exactly what we're seeing. It's what we saw when we strengthened the security at the port of Calais, when people were, and they still are, by the way, coming across on trucks. It's been reduced after the sort of fences and so on were put up in Calais a few years ago, but that's what we saw. We saw it then move onto boats down the French shoreline. We've got probably in the region of heading for 5,000 people in northern France at the moment, waiting to make this journey across. I live down here on the south coast, literally sort of 10 minutes walk from the shore. The weather down here for the last few weeks has not been conducive to these boats coming across. What we're seeing now is that movement, now that the weather is calm. It's not just the heat, it's about the wave state and how high and frequently the waves are moving. So this movement is going to continue, Chris, I'm afraid, because...
I know, Henry, but back in the day when we first met, you used to be leader of a political party, UKIP. What would you do if you were in power now? How would you deal with this crisis?
Well, first of all, Chris, there's two sides to this. There's the projections. Three things. First of all, every single one of these people, every single one of them, needs to be detained securely until such time as either we can remove them or they decide that they want to go back themselves. That's the first thing. We need to stop making the UK attractive, and that's the primary way that we can do that. The second thing is we need to operationally enhance our security and our management of the borders. The UK has the most disjointed, fragmented approach to managing our borders of any nation that I've worked with. And I worked with 57 countries and I helped 14 to develop border strategies. And out of all of them, the United Kingdom has the most fragmented structures and architecture. I mean, sort of, people like Border Force, Fisheries Protection and so on, all people who patrol our borders, most fragmented in really the Northern Hemisphere. The third thing is that we need to engage sort of the whole of government far more effectively in a national integrated strategy to project upstream of the flow to disrupt both the push factors, why people are leaving, the transitional factors, the whole route through which they travel, to disrupt that, and as I say, the management of our borders and internally. So it's a complex thing. It's something that other countries have done. Facing a different sort of type of challenge, perhaps, and often more difficult because they're dealing with land borders. We've got the advantage of having the channel, but we don't use that advantage. So there's a whole range of things. But one thing I would say, Chris, we shouldn't be blaming the French entirely for this, because the French position is exactly the same as mine, which is, why should we deal with this as long as the problem is caused by the Brits continuing to make the United Kingdom an attractive destination? As long as that happens, the French have got this problem. And if they take ownership of it, then it's not going to solve anything, because we are going to still be attracting them. Does that make sense?
And of course, it's moved to Belgium too, hasn't it?
Right.
And there's no one-in, one-out deal. We give France £600 million, forgive me, £600 million, don't we, to deal with this? We haven't given any money yet to Belgium. So it's moving around that northern shore.
Yeah, it's just worth saying on that, the successive British governments have come up with all sorts of, little schemes, none of which were ever going to produce any operational impact, and have just they've strengthened the message, in a sense, the impression that the UK government is not serious about this.
Henry Bolton, we're out of time. Henry, we're out of time, but it's great to see you again, and thank you for joining us from sunny Kent, I guess, where you are, given you're near Dover. Thank you for joining us. OK. Now, French authorities have reportedly dropped new EU border checks at Dover after queue chaos. Now, we know that they're stuck there for 5 hours in boiling hot weather in those cars. Traffic around Dover is now crawling, with a huge queue stretching down the A20 as holidaymakers and freight lorries all try to reach the port at once. And why not? They want to go away on business or work or holidays. These disruptions are due to the rollout of a new entry-exit system for Brits getting into the European Union. Join me now is a travel expert, Paul Charles. Paul Charles, I've been lucky enough to be in Greece recently. There were no checks to get to Greece. You simply went straight through and you were checked at the passport control. Why is France not being like Greece and making it easier for us to go to France and, frankly, spend money in their economy? It's outrageous.
Well, you were very lucky, Chris, to get through without those checks, because, of course, the Greeks have suspended the entry of the entry-exit system, knowing that it would cause long delays, as we saw at Dover this morning. So the French actually never switched on the system this morning because they realised there were so many cars heading towards the port of Dover that it would cause even longer queues. But they were still having to process those vehicles, which is what led to the 4 to 5 hour initial queue. But what it shows, and like you, I've been traveling a lot in Europe just in the last month or so, is that the entry-exit system has so many issues. We've got France not switching it on in this particular case at the port of Dover. We have Greece not using it this summer. We've had issues in Portugal, of course, earlier this summer. And what it shows is this system is just not fit for purpose. It's not been introduced at all well.
And it's been coming for a number of years now, hasn't it, Paul Charles? And I think it was delayed from previous years to be introduced. Now it's there. It does seem a bit, frankly, invasive to be fingerprinted before you go on holiday. I mean, it's criminalising people who are trying to, frankly, go to a country and spend their hard-earned money in that country.
Well, of course, we've seen it in other countries, America and even in Asia.
Doesn't make it right, though.
No, it doesn't. But of course, what this is trying to do is to make a more seamless, ironically, a more seamless border of whichever country you go into by giving them your biometric data, a picture of obviously your face, of your fingerprints, so that once they've got them, you can go in more seamlessly. That's the travel aspect to it, making a digital border much easier to get through. But the irony is, of course, the technology has so many issues, especially when linked to so many hundreds of thousands of people crossing borders during the busier periods like this weekend, that it's just not working. It's just not practical. So obviously governments want to know who is going in and out of their country increasingly, and that's part of the reason for introducing this system. But equally, it is to make borders more seamless. And from that respect, if it works, it would make it much quicker to get through.
So the idea is you do it once, never again. So that's the idea.
Well, that's the idea. But but I have to say, having been in many European countries just in the last 3 or 4 weeks alone, I'm an expert, I'm still trying to work out this system, because every time I go through, And when I leave the country, they've taken my picture and my fingerprints every time.
Yeah.
And the whole point of the EU entry-exit system is that you'd only need to do it once. So if something's not working, the systems are not talking to each other relative to each country. And that's why I think it's just not fit for purpose at the moment.
Paul Charles, just to go back to the beginning of our conversation, as far as you're concerned, this isn't caused by fingerprinting, it's just caused by volume of traffic and they're checking each car. Is that right? So would this have happened in any year, frankly?
Well, we know that there are issues in other places due to the volume of people going through, and they've had to suspend the system, which is probably why I've been seeing a different process every time I've gone in and out of a border recently in Europe. But yes, the French just couldn't cope with the volume this morning at the port of Dover, and they had to resort to more manual processing. And of course, when you introduce manual processing, that is taking easily 2 to 3 minutes per person, compared with the old days where a simple passport check would have taken about 20 to 30 seconds. So when you're elongating the process, it's no wonder that people are having to queue for so many hours.
And just finally, Paul Charles, is this a Brexit issue? I mean, we were never in the Schengen zone, were we? So it was probably not a Brexit issue that's causing the queue delays.
It's not a Brexit issue. It is, in this particular case, just the fact of the entry of a new system and bringing it into process. But it needs to be rethought because it's not working.
Look, Paul Charles, great to see you again on GB News. Thank you for joining us and come back soon. Thank you. Now, you're with me, Christopher Hope, on GB News. There's lots more coming up on today's Soaraway show. The new leader of Bradford City Council has written to the chair of the independent inquiry into grooming gangs to ask for the entire area to be included in the national inquiry, promising an independent inquiry if the district isn't included. But after the break, Jeremy Clarkson and farming's biggest stars are giving the traditional country show a modern makeover at the Great British Farm Fest. We're live from there shortly. All of that and more to come. You're with Britain's Soaraway, boiling hot GB News, best channel in the country, Britain's News Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
We can allow.
Stop.
You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB Newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the weekend with me, Christopher Hope. Now, the UK's biggest country fair and music festival is underway in Warwickshire. The Great British Farm Fest includes 3 days of farming, livestock and good old-fashioned countryside chaos. It's being hosted by former Top Gear presenter Jeremy Clarkson, his friend Caleb Cooper, Lisa Hogan and other stars of the farming firmament. GB News entertainment reporter Alex Davis joined us now live from a boiling hot Warwickshire. Alex.
Yes, very hot indeed. You've joined me at just the right time. If you look over my shoulder here, Jeremy Clarkson, Caleb Cooper, Lisa Hogan and co have just made their way into the arena for today's tractor show, where they will be showing off his famous Lamborghini. I believe Caleb's is a class, if I can get my tractor speak going. But yeah, there's Jeremy there talking to the thousands of people who have come out today to celebrate British farming, to back British farmers, get behind local businesses and all support an amazing cause. Obviously, through Clarkson's farm, he really shone a light on what farming really is like for British farmers and the challenges that they go through. I hope you can hear me over Clarkson's voice. I'm just trying to drown him out in case there's any choice words that he may pop into the monologue. But yeah, that's them there, and we've had all sorts of shows going on in this arena here today. There was sort of a balletic display with some JCBs earlier. We had Ford Ranger racing, in which Clarkson himself decided to cut up the turf here at Stoneleigh Park. But it hasn't just been about Clarkson and the Clarkson's Farm co-stars. It has been about local farmers and local business owners as well. Decked across this entire venue are hundreds and hundreds of stalls, hundreds of food vendors, hundreds of farmers, hundreds of charities, and everybody is in such good spirits. They're all talking to each other because they all know one thing: we need to back British farming.
And we're seeing some skidding. I think that was Jeremy Clarkson at the wheel, and there's Caleb getting out. I think skidding there, throwing some bales around. It looks great fun. I do love farming shows. I'm obsessed about watching these balers and how they take down the dry grass, the silage, and they wrap it all up. And it's also mechanised now, but the sheer cost of the kit you're looking at, Alex, is a lot, isn't it? And that's the point about farming. It's a huge investment here for farmers, and they can't afford really to pay these big hike in inheritance tax as it was mooted by the government. And it's quite good that we are being reintroduced, I think, to the scale of farming and how important it is.
Well, that's the thing. Farmers actually each year are scraping by with their profits and what they can actually take home from themselves, because all of their money is tied up in big machines, as you can see behind me and as have been on display throughout this event. And it just goes to show that there needs to be more knowledge about the industry. I've spoken to some people today who say that the farmers make up 1% of the workforce, but then they make up for 23% of the fatalities and the injuries that take place in the workplace. It's a dangerous job, and farmers in recent years have felt like they're not being supported. They felt like they've been left behind. They feel like they're being slapped with every sort of piece of red tape that can be found, and all they want to do is have support and put food on our tables. And events like this go some way to really getting that point across. I mean, just look at the thousands of people who have come out here today, braved the scorching heat. Granted, they've got nice hats and sun cream and plenty of water and beer and whatnot to keep them hydrated, but it just goes to show there's a huge appetite to get behind these guys, to get behind farmers. It's not just Clarkson.
On there, have you tried
Charlie
a diddly?
Ireland there speaking at the moment.
Have you tried yet a diddly squat sausage, Alex Davis? I see it's all there, and you can camp, can't you, for 3 days? Well, when does it end, the Farm Fest?
Yeah, so it started yesterday, it ends tomorrow. I've had more diddly squat sausages than I'd perhaps like to admit, and maybe a few more pints of Hawkston beer than I'd quite like to admit. Not today, of course, ever the professional. But there are plenty and plenty of businesses here. Everybody's in amazing spirits. I spoke to TikTok superstar Spudman earlier, who told me all about what life's like being for him as a small business owner. But everybody is here to do one thing, as I keep mentioning, and that's support British farming.
Brilliant. Look, Alex Davis, thanks for joining us. Keep the sunscreen on, keep coming back to us throughout the show, live there from Warwickshire, and the brilliant Farm Fest. Looks great fun. Thank you. You're with me, Christopher Hope, on GB News. This is The Weekend. Lots more coming up on today's show. The famous Red Arrows will fly with just 7 aircraft rather than the 9 they normally have for the majority of their displays until at least 2030, because guess what? Their engines are so old. I'll be joined by their former training instructor to give us a lowdown. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Good afternoon. The headlines from the GB Newsroom. Around 100 migrants have just arrived into Dover on a border force vessel after setting off from Belgium this morning. Another boat carrying the same number of migrants is expected to arrive in Dover shortly. A surge in channel crossings is expected this weekend as a heatwave hits the UK. As tens of thousands of people get away for the bank holiday weekend, French authorities have reportedly suspended new EU border checks at the port of Dover after delays reached up to 5 hours. Traffic is now moving again. Well, that comes as a heat wave hits the UK, with temperatures expected to be hotter than the Seychelles today, with highs of 30 degrees in the south of England. At least 90 people have been killed in an explosion at a mine in the Shanxi province, that's in northern China. Officials there are warning that number is expected to rise, with around 247 workers having been on site when the gas explosion occurred. Those are your latest headlines. I'll have more for you at 2 o'clock.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Bethany, thank you. Now let's cross live down to Dover to join GB News' national reporter Will Godley, who's got some breaking news on the migrant crisis. Will.
Chris, yeah, good afternoon to you. As just in the last minute or so, the Border Force vessel Defender has arrived in the port of Dover. It's going at the speed limit here inside the port as it's come into the port, I suppose, walls as they are, and it's travelling down to where it will dock. It will probably take it about 5 to 10 minutes for it to travel at this speed to where it's going to dock here at the processing area. But this is a vessel that for the last few hours has been out at the halfway mark in the channel. It's halfway between Britain and France, and it's where it picks up small boats. Today it picked up a small boat that set off this morning from Belgium. The boat then travelled down the coastline before going into the shallows by a beach in Dunkirk. More passengers then got on this small boat, which is not really that small. They're about 11 metres long. They can carry up to 100 people. That boat then took off from Dunkirk around 6 o'clock this morning. It was fairly slow in its journey. It took quite a while in order to get to the halfway point in the channel. It was escorted there by a French Navy boat, and it linked up then with the Border Force vessel Defender, and it's in the channel where then the migrants on board the dinghy then disembark and board this Border Force vessel. They're then escorted, they're then taken from the halfway point to here in Dover. This boat will then dock. The migrants will get off and they'll be processed in the marquee that's set up just in the port here. Of course, these boats can carry up to about 100 people. We won't know how many people are on board this specific boat we have on your screens now until, of course, they disembark and they are counted, but could be up to 100 people. Earlier this morning it was 79 small boat migrants who arrived here. They came on a small boat that set off just after 8 o'clock this morning from Gravelines. It took them about 2 hours to make the crossing to the halfway point before they were picked up. This boat has taken a much longer period of time, Chris, but it is just docking imminently as you see it travelling through the port of Dover now. And although there will be some arrivals today, perhaps 200 or so, maybe less, and yesterday there were just under 400, and there perhaps might be more over this bank holiday weekend as the good weather and the calm winds continue, but it's by no way some of the busiest days that we've seen in recent years, where more than 1,000 small boat migrants make the crossing here to the UK. And up until this weekend, it was 44% down compared to the year before, the number of people crossing the channel. But with pictures like these of yet more crossings and yet more arrivals, no doubt still causing a headache for the Home Office and Shabana Mahmood, Chris.
That's right, Will. This Starmada, as it's been called already on social media, is a headache, of course, for this government. We'll wait and see how many get off that boat, and keep your telescope glued on that one, Will, and we'll be back to you straight away when you get more information. Lots more coming up on today's show. It's been reported that UK officials suggested establishing a single market for goods trade with the European Union as part of this long-fabled next phase of Keir Starmer's Brexit reset. But they were told to clear off by the EU. Is this another embarrassment for the UK, or frankly negotiating with the European Union? All that more to come. I'm Christopher Hope, and you're with GB News. We are Britain's best, number one, the only, the best news channel.
Hello there. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Certainly is shaping up to be quite the sunny weekend for many of us, all courtesy of an area of high pressure that's building in across the UK. There are a few frontal systems around at the moment to start off Saturday. We've seen some cloud clearing off the far southeast of England, and also be aware there'll be some cloud lingering around coastal areas of Wales and the southwest of England, may provide some sea fog and murky conditions in places, but much of England and Wales will hold on to bright sunny skies. And with that though, we are going to see pollen levels rising. We are entering the grass pollen season now, so hay fever sufferers be aware, and UV levels are also going to be quite high. Top temperatures of today around London, over towards Kent, potential for our first 30 degrees Celsius of the day, but widely into the low to mid-20s for many. That other front in the northwest is bringing a touch more cloud for Northern Ireland and Scotland, still around 20 degrees Celsius for parts of Aberdeen and eastern areas, but perhaps a few spots of rain for the Highlands and over the hills here, and temperatures around 13 or 14 degrees Celsius, which is a touch closer towards average for the time of year. Quite breezy in the northwest as well, with that frontal system in play, and the cloud will linger here throughout the night, the rain perhaps turning a bit more persistent. But for much other areas, it is going to be a clear night to come. A few mist and fog patches forming in places, but skies should be pretty clear throughout. Temperatures are a bit of a mix between rural and urban areas. In rural regions, we may drop down into mid-single figures, but most of us in our towns and cities starting off in double digits on Sunday morning. And it's widespread blue skies for the vast majority of us into this second day of the bank holiday weekend. Plenty of fine conditions if you want to get outside, the exception once again being the far northwest of Scotland, where that rain is going to persist right throughout the day and again hold those temperatures back. But temperatures climbing up a little further now in the southeast towards 31 degrees Celsius. There's plenty more sunshine on the cards throughout into Bank Holiday Monday and next week, including now for northern Scotland, and those temperatures really peaking as we head into Monday. Bye-bye.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christies tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back to the weekend with me, Christopher Hope. Now, we'll bring you straight to Dover as soon as we get those pictures of the disembarking migrants of that border force vessel with Will Godley, so stay tuned for that. But for now, Brexit. 6 years on, and the relationship with Europe is still causing political headaches. Now it's emerged in the Guardian newspaper that Labour officials have quietly explored closer trade ties with the European Union through a single market for goods deal. But Brussels is said to have pushed back, raising fresh question marks over our vexed relationship with the European Union and where it goes next. Joining me now is the chairman of the Growth Commission and a former government advisor on trade, Shankar Singham. Shankar, of course, what's happening here, the government is trying to get closer to the European Union. What are the red flags we should look out for? I mean, in terms of sovereignty, as long as the European Court has no bearing, the European Court of Justice has no bearing over the UK, Brexit hasn't been badly affected. Is that right? So that's the red line we should be looking at.
Well, that's part of it. I mean, what you also want to make sure is that you have the power to set your own laws and your own regulations, and in particularly with respect to the EU, which by its own admission has a regulatory system that is very anti-competitive and damaging to growth. That's been admitted by Merz from Germany and by Draghi in the recent Draghi report. You want to make sure that you have as good a regulatory system, as pro-competitive a regulatory system as you can possibly have, because obviously there are costs to leaving the EU in terms of customs process and regulatory process, but there are significant benefits if we would actually embrace a pro-competitive regulatory system. And I think part of the problem here is a lack of imagination from the UK government, and not just this government, but previous governments, that have essentially focused on the cost, which is an order of magnitude less than the potential benefit of having better laws and better regulations and so forth, and not focused enough on actually crafting a regulatory system that actually works for the UK. I mean, you had a segment on earlier on about the Jeremy Clarkson's Farm Fest. Agricultural regulations are significant, damaging to the UK farm sector. They increase costs. Energy costs are very high. Fertilizer costs are very high, and so on.
But Shankar, the detail of this is we can't rejoin the customs union because that means you rip up the 6 or so trade deals already done, can we? So the best win could be some involvement with the single market. But as you say, we can't have the European Union setting regulations that we can't have any say about.
Yeah, and that's exactly what this proposal would do. It would lock out the UK from any kind of influence over the regulation that would affect the UK's market. And that would apply even to people who are not exporting to the EU at all. So all of our regulations will be set that way. And by the way, on your point about the trade agreements, those countries negotiated trade agreements on the basis that the UK made commitments on its own domestic regulatory system, which would be violated by such a proposal that is the one that you're talking about today.
The more trade deals that happen, the more secure Brexit becomes, arguably. I mean, and we're looking at this government this week, they're varying VAT, aren't they, for zoos and amusement parks and the like. These are Brexit freedoms being used by a government which hates talking about Brexit in any positive way.
And the lowering of tariff on food and this sort of thing. I mean, these are things that you can do because you're outside the EU. Yeah. But people underestimate how much you could benefit in terms of GDP per capita of the country. We've estimated that in terms of regulatory headroom for the UK, if we actually embrace pro-competitive regulation, which we would not be able to do under any kind of single market, common set of rules or dynamic alignment, we're losing 1 point in GDP per capita per year. That's what we've estimated over 10 years.
It seems the left have got this magic bullet for the problems affecting our country, which is rejoining the European Union. In the same way, the right seem to go obsessed about the European Convention on Human Rights. And I would argue neither are really silver bullets for the entrenched problems this country faces. But by going on about these silver bullets, we don't really take on the actual problems facing our country.
Absolutely. And what we have to recognise is that the European Union, particularly Western Europe, is the slowest growing region of the world.
Yeah.
You do not want to align with the slowest growing region of the world. You want to actually face your market much more towards the faster growing regions of the world in North America and Asia, which is what our trade policy has actually done. We've done great deals, this government and the previous one, that does that.
Shankar, we're out of time. Great to see you on GB News. Thank you for joining us. We're going to go live now straight to Dover, where my colleague Will Godley has some news on the migrants arriving.
Well, Chris, yeah, just now we are seeing those migrants who have just arrived begin to disembark here in Dover. They've been brought here on the Border Force vessel Defender, who picked them up at the halfway line in the Channel. After making the journey, this small boat set off from Belgium before picking people up in Dunkirk at about 6 o'clock this morning. It then took them more than 6 hours in order to reach the halfway mark in the Channel, escorted by the French Navy. They were then picked up by this vessel you can see on your screens now if you're watching the television channel, and then it took them about an hour or so in order to disembark now here at this moment, and that's what you're looking at. You can I can see from where I'm standing these small boat migrants with their orange life vests on, beginning to step off the boat. They are just all congregating at the front of the vessel and moving down the side of the boat before then they walk down the ramp, then onto the port, and there is a little marquee set up just to the side where the processing begins and takes place of these migrants before then they are taken to a centre in Manston for further processing. This is the second arrival we've seen today. In the first arrival, I'll just remind you, there were 79 small boat migrants who arrived, and that took place just after 11 o'clock this morning. Now, almost 3 hours later, the second boatload of arrivals could bring the total to as many as 200 so far arriving here illegally today. Yesterday, we saw almost 400 small boats migrants arrive here on 6 small boats, so the number's smaller today, and we don't know why this particular boat took such a long time to make the crossing up to the halfway point. 6.5 hours or so, slightly longer than the previous boat, which took just 2 hours. It could be this was more laden, had more people on board. It could be that the boat perhaps had a smaller engine, or perhaps the winds picked up slightly. It's about 35 or so miles between here and Dunkirk, so going half of that 17 miles if it's in a straight line, taking them some time. But these migrants, Chris, beginning to walk off the boat now. We're just seeing them cross the tarmac, going into this processing centre, this marquee here, where they then will be processed. Coming off the boat now, this Border Force vessel Defender.
Well, Godley, and you're keeping an eye on how many are coming aboard, and often these boats now, they take as many as 100 in these single boats, don't they? Fascinating to hear how they are taking off, or they're embarking from Belgium, going down the coast into shallow water in France and picking them up. And of course, we know the French police are loath to want to intervene. They don't want to risk any loss of life by tackling those smugglers, and they don't want to go into water, frankly, where you risk putting people into cold water. It is frankly an insult, isn't it, to this government, Will Godley, that these gangs are acting with impunity?
And absolutely taking advantage of the warm weather and calm seas, setting off on these journeys. These boats, we call them small boats, but they are about 11 metres long, and as you say, Chris, can have up to 100 people. So on these pictures you're seeing up to 100 people potentially disembarking, having arrived here in the UK illegally. And this boat is an example of the people smugglers trying to get around this French crackdown, thanks to this multi-million-pound deal signed between the UK and France authorities, making it much harder for people smugglers to set off from French beaches, now choosing to get in the water from Belgium and travel down the coastline to France, where people now wade out into the shallows of the sea before jumping into the boat effectively. But whether we see any more today, we'll have to wait and see.
OK. Will Godley, thank you for joining us there. And, of course, stay tuned there with your telescope. Let us know how many you're seeing cross, and we'll come back to you straight away. OK, moving on now. The Red Arrows are one of the UK's most iconic sights in the sky. We love them, don't we? And every summer, millions watch them fly over our country in displays. But they may notice something missing. The RAF display team will mostly now fly with 7 jets instead of the famous Diamond 9, because the Hawk engines are ageing and no longer made. The full formation is now being saved for major moments like the King's birthday flypast and other royal events. Joining me now is a former RAF fighter pilot, training instructor and standards officer, Tim Davis. Mr Davis, this is sad. Why can't they just put a new engine in like a car?
Well, engines make up a huge cost of the airframe. It's millions and millions of pounds. They're not making the Turbine Mecharodor 151. That, remember, came in with the service of the Hawk back in 1974. So the aircraft is over 50 now. So really, to re-engine it isn't really worth doing. You may as well replace it with something like the Hawk T2 that I taught on alongside the T1 for many years now.
And having 7, not 9, will that change the kind of the extraordinary stunts, the close flying that the jets do?
Yeah, I expect it will. I mean, it's not as much a performance, is it, when you reduce the number? But this really is something that we have to look at with regards to MOD spending and the way that the Treasury looks at defence. And of course, you can either have education and healthcare, or you can have defence. You can't have all three, can you? That's the problem.
Well, what's the point of the Red Arrows, Mr Davis? We love watching them, but I guess when the Bean Council are looking at the cost, they're wondering why we have these red planes and not spending money on actually defending the country.
Yeah, well, the pilots actually do defend the country. The pilots aren't just specific Red Arrows pilots, don't get me wrong. These men, well, I think they're all men now, but men, and have been women before, of course, have all come off frontline jets, Typhoon, F-35, that sort of thing, or instructors like myself, obviously with previous frontline experience. So they will go back into those roles as well. And what it is, it's demonstrating British industry to the rest of the world. And there is the issue, of course, because what we're demonstrating is a 50-year-old aeroplane. And of course, we can say, look how great industry is, because we have an aircraft that can fly for 50 years. But of course, we're not demonstrating the new aircraft, are we? And that's one of the issues.
We're looking at some amazing footage, of course, of the wonderful Red Arrows flying over Buckingham Palace with their red, white and blue plumes. What's it like to fly? I mean, imagine you've been obviously flying like that, flying with a plume behind you and so close at such speed to your other pilots in the air. What is it like? It must be terrifying, nervous.
Oh, I wasn't a Red Arrows pilot, no, but I did train a couple of them as I came through the flight school. And I've actually been in the Reds when they've done part of a display. So I had a look at that. Yeah, these are ultimate professionals. And here's the problem you've got as well, is we haven't got many pilots to spare to put in these aeroplanes, because it takes a long time to train people. And of course, we haven't got many frontline aircraft anymore anyway. That's the problem with the Royal Air Force. We've gone very small across defence. So by reducing the fleet to 7, you actually do save the Royal Air Force another 2 pilots that you can put on F-35, Typhoon, something like that, or back into flight training. But the training they do is still exceptional. It really is, and you're not going to find a better bunch of people to do displays like that in the world, and I'm convinced of that.
It really is the best of British. Is there a reason why they're red?
Why the Red Arrows are red? God, you're getting into my technical detail now. I must admit, you'd have to go ask the team that, to be fair. I probably should know.
Don't worry, we'll find out the next hour. Look, Tim Davis, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it, and it's lovely to see those shots of the Red Arrows. Really, thank you for joining us, sir. You're with me, Christopher Hope, on GB News. Dawn's not here, but I'm here. Lots more coming up on today's show. Don't go anywhere. We're going straight back to Dover imminently to see how many migrants have crossed over today. You're, of course, with GB News, Britain's news channel. Stay tuned in for all the news on this migrant crisis developing this hour.
£76,543 and 21 pence in tax-free cash could be yours this summer. That's totally tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. And remember, because it's totally tax-free cash, you'll get to keep every single penny. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christies tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Cur weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, it's 2 p.m. on Saturday the 23rd of May. This is the weekend on GB News. Now, GB News can confirm this hour that 83 migrants have arrived in a second crossing today after 79 disembarked from a Border Force vessel earlier this morning amid Britain's scorching heatwave, taking the total arrivals to 162 in the past few hours. With 400 illegal migrants arriving yesterday, just how many more can we expect to cross over this boiling hot bank holiday weekend?
Yeah, those small boat migrants now being processed in the centre just behind me. 162 arriving here, according to our provisional figures. That is the amount on board 2 small boats that have set off today and made it here as people smugglers take advantage of the warm weather and calm seas.
It's not just chaos in the Channel, it's chaos at Dover as Brits face an almost 5-hour wait in their cars at the port as UK temperatures could break records. But how are Brits across the country coping with the hot snap?
Really enjoying it. Feels like I'm on my summer holidays.
I won't be out and about too much, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big lover of the heat.
I've got water with me and I've got suntan lotion, so yeah, I think it's fine.
It probably will be too hot later, yes. And then we'll just have to retire to a bar and stay there for the rest of the evening.
Mixed views there, but we love talking about the weather in our country. Now, elsewhere, the new leader of Bradford City Council has written to the chair of the independent inquiry into grooming gangs to ask for the entire area to be included in the national inquiry, promising an independent inquiry if they are not included by that national inquiry. Jeremy Clarkson and farming's biggest names are giving the traditional country show a modern makeover at the Great British Farm Fest.
Yes, Jeremy Clarkson's inaugural Farm Fest is in full swing, where the cleverer amongst us are sheltering in the shade. I'll have all the latest from farmers, fans and some very familiar faces later today.
I'm Christopher Hope and this is The Weekend on GB News. The show is, of course, nothing without you and your views. Let me know your thoughts on all of the stories we're discussing today by going to gbnews.com/your say and join the conversation, or you can scan the QR code you're seeing now on your screens. But before we get into these stories in the next hour, here's your latest news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Good afternoon. Your top stories from the GB Newsroom at 2:02. 162 migrants have arrived into Dover on Border Force vessels today after they set off on 2 small dinghies this morning. The second Border Force vessel, which you can see on your screen now, docked in the last half an hour after the first arrived earlier on. A surge in channel crossings is expected this weekend as a heatwave hits the UK. 400 migrants were recorded making the journey yesterday. French authorities have suspended the new EU border checks at the port of Dover after delays reached up to 5 hours. It comes as tens of thousands of holidaymakers try to cross the channel for the bank holiday weekend. The port is allowing anyone who missed their ferry crossing because of queues to travel on the next available slot free of charge. Well, temperatures could be higher than the Seychelles today, with highs of 30 degrees expected in the south of England. Britain is also forecast to see its hottest May day on record on Monday, with temperatures reaching 33 degrees across the south and the Midlands. But the UK Health Security Agency has issued amber heat health alerts for the Midlands, the east and southeast of England and London until Wednesday evening, with those aged 65 and over at risk. GB News' Tara Goodsell spoke to people in the capital about how they're enjoying the weather.
Really enjoy it. I mean, we don't get it very often, do we? So we've got to make the most of it.
I won't be out and about too much, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big lover of the heat.
I've got water with me and I've got suntan lotion, so yeah, I think it's fine. It probably will be too hot later, yes. And then we'll just have to retire to a bar and stay there for the rest of the evening.
Seychelles, really? I mean, yeah, it's crazy. It's pretty crazy. I mean, it does get a bit hot. You do not want to get into the tube. But yeah, you do enjoy it. I think past 28, 29 degrees, it gets a bit unbearable. But overall, I do enjoy it, yeah.
A new report is warning the UK is facing an economic catastrophe unless it adapts to a generation rewired by smartphones. The former Minister Alan Milburn's review, to be released next week, examines why almost 1 million 16 to 24-year-olds are either not in employment, education or training. It's expected to blame smartphones and social media for rising levels of anxiety, depression and neurodiversity. Speaking to The Times, he rejected claims that young people are so-called snowflakes and said the country is at risk of writing off a whole generation. At least 90 people have been killed in an explosion at a mine in the Shanxi province in northern China, with officials warning that number is expected to rise. Chinese state media reports 247 workers were on site when the gas explosion occurred. President Xi Jinping has urged authorities to spare no effort in treating the injured and in the search and rescue mission, and has ordered an investigation. It's reported the UK government has pitched the creation of a single market for goods with the European Union. According to the Guardian newspaper, Cabinet Office Minister Michael Ellam presented the idea to deepen the UK's economic relationship to the EU during recent visits to Brussels. But the paper claims EU officials rejected that idea and instead suggested a customs union. That would be impossible under Sir Keir Starmer's red lines, though, after he said he wouldn't rejoin the EU or customs union in his lifetime. Both sides will hold a summit in July. And conservationists are warning that 70,000 man-made barriers are disrupting rivers across the UK. Wildfish claims weirs and dams harm wildlife, trap pollution and block fish migration. The charity says many of the structures are old and present a huge problem for river health. Those are the latest headlines. I'll have more for you at past.
Thank you, Bethany. Now let's get stuck into today's topics. Breaking news of these in the past few moments, 83 small boat migrants have arrived in Dover, taking today's total to 162, according to GB News' provisional figures about arrivals. Joining me now with the latest is GB News national reporter Will Godley, who is in Dover with his telescope. Will.
Chris, good afternoon to you. Yeah, I didn't need to use my telescope. I'm close enough to see the disembarkation from the Border Force vessel just over my shoulder. That happened about 20 minutes ago. That latest load of small boat migrants arriving, that was the second boat load there has been arriving today here in Dover. They were escorted into the port here on board the Border Force vessel Defender, and that boat set off from Belgium this morning in the early hours of this morning, travelling down the coastline before then coming into the shallows by Dunkirk in France. It was there around 6 o'clock in the morning before then making its way through the channel. It took over 6 hours to get from Dunkirk to the halfway mark. It was escorted by a French Navy vessel, and then when it reaches the halfway point, that's when it's picked up by a Border Force vessel. This time it was Defender, and then it took about an hour for those on board to be brought here, where they are now being processed. 83, as you say, Chris, on board, and that follows an earlier boatload arriving here, 79 on board that boat. That was far more the traditional route of the boat setting off from France, the boat inflated, we understand, in Gravelines, and then being carried out through the dunes, people getting on board there, and then travelling on through towards Britain. Here it took them about 2 hours to make the journey from a French coastline right to the halfway point. They set off about 8 o'clock this morning and were picked up by UK Border Force around 10 o'clock. Before then arriving here just after 11 o'clock this morning. So 162 arrivals today, but that is of course far fewer than perhaps you would see on the busiest days when you get over 1,000 small boat migrants arriving here in Dover. But what is interesting is that we are far more now seeing boats set off from the beaches of Belgium, as this second one that's just arrived did this morning. And that is because of that new deal signed between the UK and France, seeing the French crack down much more on small boats setting off from their beaches, and so making it much harder for the people smugglers to get into the water from France. Instead, then, they are choosing to get into the water from Belgium, and Belgian authorities say last year they didn't have a single small boat set off from their beaches. So far this year already, they said yesterday, they have escorted 400 small boat migrants from their beaches. No doubt that figure will continue to rise as the French crack down. Already this morning, some migrants weren't quite so lucky in getting to Britain. We saw pictures from a beach in Dunkirk showing migrants going back into the dune as their trip was thwarted, perhaps because it was down to engine failure, or perhaps French authorities slashing the boat, preventing them from making the crossing as part of this crackdown from French sources. And the government would say their plan is working. 44% reduction up to this weekend in small boat crossings compared to this time last year, and a 23% reduction compared to 2024, Chris. However, this weekend we have seen an uptick, 394 small boat migrant arrivals yesterday on board 6 different small boats. Today, 162, and with this warm weather continuing, no doubt that number will continue to tick up over the weekend, over the bank holiday weekend, perhaps providing a headache for those in the Home Office looking to clamp down on the small boat crossings, although they would say, wouldn't they, that number has already come down so far this year.
OK, Will Godley, thank you for doing that, and keep staying across those numbers as they arrive, and we'll go straight back to you if there are any developments. Thank you. Joining me now is the political commentator Matthew Stadlen. Matthew, another reminder of how this government cannot control our porous southern border. It's a top issue for so many voters.
Chris, great to see you. Great to see everybody. Happy bank holiday weekend. Listen, I appreciate it is a relatively slow news day, but I'm not sure that 160 people crossing the channel is breaking news or headline news. What I would say is just point viewers to some facts, and the reporter there pointed you to one of them. But listen, UK migration down 48%. Immigration, Chris, down 20%. Emigration down 6%. Asylum applications down 12%. This is on the year. Returns and deportations from the UK up 7%. Arrivals by small boats, as we were just hearing there, 1st of Jan, this is, to 20th of May, so just a few days ago, down 41%. Now, those numbers may climb again. I'm someone, the government is a government that wants these small boats to stop, but it is tricky. It seems as though the deal with France is beginning to work in some shape or form. I think you would agree with me, Chris, that if the French government simply said, we will take back everybody who arrives by small boat, this problem would disappear. And then we could agree with the French, we will take a certain number of genuine asylum seekers. So the French, I think if we could do better business with the French, and I was hoping Starmer might be able to do that, then I think this would really start to shift. But we're also clearly going to have to do a deal with Belgium, because if people smugglers are now shifting their business model from the French coast to the Belgian coast, then that seems to me an obvious next step. But just to say again, if you keep telling people that this is a crisis, then they're going to believe it. The vast majority of people who are coming here and shouldn't be coming here in this way, I'm absolutely clear about that, but the vast majority of people who are coming here are trying to improve their lives, many of them genuine asylum seekers.
Just checking, Matthew, you are saying crisis, what crisis are you, which seems extraordinary. There is a crisis. The border appears regularly breached by small boat migrants. The numbers of people, asylum seekers living in hotels or HMOs or even army camps went up in the year that you described there. That was one of the stats you didn't choose to include, up by about 5,000 or 6,000. It is a complete insult to this country that people arrive here illegally. And if the Labour government could control the southern border, you'd allow the managed arrival of people who deserve to be here, who aren't paying £2,000 to jump the queue.
Chris, the whole point here is, how do you stop them? And I've just given you some examples of what the government is up to. Shabana Mahmood, as you know, in March, because you've been following this very closely, has been changing or emphasising that status as a refugee is temporary. So there's going to be checked. These people are going to be checked every, 32 months, something like that. You'll have the stats at hand. The government is determined to stop this. I saw you on GBNews the other day interviewing Mike Tapp, who's one of the immigration ministers. He's been on the 20 Questions with podcast this week as well. He really wants to stop this. He accepts there is more to do. I would just ask you this. I mean, you'll have been talking to Nigel Farage and other reform figures. And what we've heard from Zia Youssef recently is the absurd anti-democratic idea of, in inverted commas, punishing constituencies that don't vote reform with detention centres. Now, not only is that anti-democratic and absurd and very ugly, but it is also profoundly, as I'm sure you'd accept, deeply stupid. Because let's say there's a constituency, Chris, that votes, say, 40% reform, but 45% people vote Labour or Green or Tory or whatever, then those 40% in that constituency are going to have a detention centre on their doorstep because Zia Youssef wants to punish the other 60%. That is the sort of nonsense, gimmicky gesture politics which tells me, and I hope tells many of the GB News viewers, that this reform attempt to reach government and for Nigel Farage to get into number 10 is just a joke.
Well, yes, the user did say they want to site camps of migrants in areas which have been, or green areas, as he said at the time, of those who want to who have been more welcoming. But just moving back to the issue at hand here, Matthew Stadlen, what more can this government do? They've been squeezing engine supply, they're squeezing boat supply from Germany. They're now being, as you say, coming from Belgium. Should we be giving £500 million to the Belgians to sort out the problem, given we've given or promised 600 million to France to try and deal with the problem they aren't tackling?
The government needs to continue, Chris, to be innovative. I mean, I saw one report in recent days that there were more sniffer dogs in Bulgaria managing the border with the EU to try and stop the sorts of boats, the inflatable dinghies, that end up on French or Belgian shores. This government knows the toxicity of this issue, even though actually illegal immigration is not a new one. As you know, people in the old days, or the relatively recent days actually, were coming on the backs of lorries and so forth, but it has become immensely visible. And as soon as Nigel Farage started turning up on the beaches of Kent, he was turning it into a massive political issue. It's not actually that new. It doesn't mean it doesn't need to be solved, but it needs to be solved within the law, and it needs to be solved within British values.
You seem to be upset with the news, Matthew Stadlen, which isn't really our fault. But anyway, I mean, we are covering it because it's a problem for the government. It's a top 3 issue. We're regularly polled as being high up.
I'm not saying you shouldn't be covering it. I just personally don't think 160 people arriving on these shores today, partly because it's not particularly unusual, is headline news. I'm here talking to you, but I'm here talking to you precisely because I want to talk to GB News viewers. Yeah. And what I'm trying to explain is that the government actually is serious about this. You'll get people on social media saying this is an open borders government, they deliberately importing people to vote Labour, all these sorts of nonsense conspiracy theories. What I'm saying is, this is not an easy issue to fix. It's an issue I want to be fixed. And it is an issue, as you know, Chris, because you've talked to Keir Starmer, you've talked to many Labour politicians, and some of them have been on your show or been on GB News. This is something they're serious about trying to fix.
That they are serious, but hopefully we can get there. Frankly, it's in all of our national interest. Thank you for joining us, as ever, Matthew Stadlen, on a boiling hot bank holiday Saturday. Thank you for joining us. Now, while the Chancellor announced a range of great British summer savings this week, it seems a fresh tax grab could be hitting families as the sunny weather arrives too. Families could face a £300 holiday tax on staycations in a bid to lift up struggling councils. Around 10 regional mayors are considering the overnight visitor levies, which could be devastating for families already worrying about rising bills. I'm joined now by the former Cabinet Office Chief Economist, Jonathan Portes. Jonathan, what do you make of this? I mean, no one wants taxes to go up, but if the money is kept in areas which need the money, does that justify it?
Absolutely. And as many of your viewers know, these taxes are actually extremely common on continental Europe. A large number of cities in Spain, France, Italy, and so on have them. They're usually relatively small. I think this £300 number is very much at the upper end. They're usually £1 or £2 or £3 or euros a night, and they help local authorities or cities which do get a lot of tourists and have, of course, to provide services as a consequence of that, whether it's everything from, rubbish collection, street cleaning, that sort of thing. It helps local authorities cope with the extra pressure. So it seems to me an entirely sensible move.
Well, yes, but we're not comparing light with light, because taxes are different on the continent to the UK, and it's a further tax for people who maybe can't afford it. You say €1, €2 or €3. Is that each? For a family of 5, that's €5 a night. For a week, that's €35 a night, or £35 a night. This is money which some people can't afford.
Well, obviously nobody likes paying taxes, but taxing visitors is both typically a pretty efficient way of raising money. It doesn't really have much of an impact on demand because it's still going to be a pretty small fraction of your overall holiday bill, quite frankly. And second, it goes to the authorities that are put under most pressure as a consequence of visitors.
Yes.
And we know that there are authorities, particularly in places like Cornwall, for example, which do struggle with an influx of large numbers of visitors and providing services.
If it pays place for local services, for example, opening up closed public lavatories, which many think have been closed by councils who say they can't afford to keep them open. That's a good thing. But the risk is, surely, that if these 10 councils do go ahead with these holiday taxes, then the central government may then withdraw some of the grants given to them. So it's actually net no benefit for the local areas.
Well, that I agree. That would be quite wrong, and it's important the government makes clear that that is not going to happen, that if local authorities do impose these levies, that they will be able to effectively keep the money and plough it back into local services. That's absolutely correct.
But it's a worry. I mean, yes, you look at Rachel Reeves. What do you make of this week's bonanza, giving away money to taking the VAT off attractions, paying for bus journeys for children aged 5 to 15 in England? All that happened, and the following day, borrowing was up by 24 billion in April, or it was 24 billion in April, up nearly 5 billion for year on year. I mean, is it all a bit giving us kind of sweeties to try and take away from the big problem of the growing borrowing cost?
It is essentially giving away sweeties. I think that's fair. These are very small amounts of money. I mean, look, that we all know, and I think Rachel Reeves and the Treasury know, the really big decision for her is when energy bills go up as a consequence of Trump's insane war, and we know that is going to happen. Not now because of the way the energy price cap works, but we know energy bills, we are paying more as the country as a whole. We are going to be paying more for energy, and we have to work out how to deal with that. And that is going to be a really big challenge coming into the winter, and that's going to be serious money, not what's happened this week. So that's what's coming. I would say, though, on borrowing that last year, look, we got the final year figures for last year. This month's figures really don't tell us very much, but we do get the final year's figures for last year, and the deficit is coming down. So in that sense, the government said it would get the deficit down. The government has got the deficit down. In that sense, Rachel Reeves's plans are on track. But the big challenges are very much still to come.
Well, yeah, we're looking at possibly 6% inflation by Christmas, etc. We'll wait and see how that plays out. Jonathan Portes, we really appreciate you coming on GB News on a hot Saturday today with us. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, a government spokesman said this: the visitor levy will give mayors more powers to raise money and invest in their priorities, like improving holiday destinations and growing the local economy to put more money in people's pockets. The final design of the visitor levy has not yet been decided and will ultimately be up to mayors to decide whether to use it. OK, you're with me, Christopher Hope, in for Dawn Neeson on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. The new leader of Bradford City Council has written to the chair of the independent inquiry into grooming gangs to ask for the entire area to be included in its national inquiry, promising that if not, they will start their own independent inquiry in Bradford. But after the break, Jeremy Clarkson and farming's biggest stars are giving the traditional country show a modern makeover at the Great British Farm Fest. All of that and more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christies Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christies Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christies Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the weekend with me, Christopher Hope. Now, the UK's biggest country fair and music festival is underway as we speak in Warwickshire. The Great British Farm Fest includes 3 days of farming, livestock and good old-fashioned countryside chaos. It's being hosted by Jeremy Clarkson, Caleb Cooper, Lisa Hogan and many other farming stars. GB News entertainment reporter and why not, Alex Davis. He's there joining us live now from Warwickshire. Alex, it's still baking hot. Who have you been seeing?
It's very hot indeed, and there's been a lot of talk about Clarkson and Co today, but the real stars of the show are these guys here. We've got the cows over there, and then just behind me we've got donkeys, we've got Highland cows over here, all sorts of animals. These are all here courtesy of Adam Henson, who we spoke to earlier today on GB News, star of Country File. It's been an amazing day here today. It's been incredibly hot, but everybody has been in great spirits, keeping themselves hydrated. It's on for one more day, so if you're in Warwickshire, you know where to come. But it's not just been about Clarkson, Caleb and Co. There's been a lot of familiar faces down here, and if you watch food videos on social media as much as I do, you'll know about Spudman. He's a small business owner. He's working here today, and I spoke to him earlier about what life has been like as a small business owner in the past few years.
I grew up in agriculture. I love it. We very much chat about the products. We use local farmer for our potatoes, we use a local dairy for our butter, our carrots for our coleslaws grown just down the road in Rugeley. Honestly, we've got to support our British farmers, and events like this really showcase what we can do in this country. It's amazing.
And as a small business owner yourself, you said you've got to back British farming. How important is it right now more than ever that we do get behind little local businesses?
Oh, it's essential. Like, we don't want to lose what we've got. We've got the best producers in the world producing the best food in the world. You know, why do we need to go anywhere else? Use local.
So that was Spudman there, and do you know what? His words have been echoed by hundreds of people that we've spoken to today. We haven't just been speaking to the familiar faces, we've been speaking to the farmers and the fans and the people who have come down here to show their support for British agriculture. And they all say the same thing: we need to be throwing our backing behind it. Here's what a couple of them had to say earlier on today.
We were talking about it on the way in. Obviously, he's made it more aware of what's going on and the issues that are being faced by the farmers. So yeah, whether it's good or bad, but it's getting some spotlight on it.
Well, we just love to support British farming, and so what better cause?
He's opened up to a lot of people and let them see what it's actually like working and living on a farm. Because a lot of people, they think, oh, farming's just sitting around doing nothing, when there's not. There's a lot more to it than what people realise.
So what is it that's brought you to Farmfest today?
The Dogfest.
And do you think more needs to be done for British farmers?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So there you have it. It's been an amazing day down here today. Everybody has been drinking it all in, but the message is very clear. Let's get behind our British farmers and maybe bring some extra sun cream, because some of us may have forgotten it in their backpacks on the way down.
OK, Alex Davis joining us live from Warwickshire. Enjoy Farmfest, and like those cows, try and get some shade pretty soon, Alex. Great to see you. You're with me, Christopher Hope, on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. Meanwhile, the Marylebone Cricket Club, the MCC, which governs the game, or governs Lords, I should say, has dispensed with a strict dress code in the Lords Pavilion today as Britain swelters in the bank holiday heatwave. But first, your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Chopper, thank you. The top stories. 162 migrants have arrived into Dover on 2 Border Force vessels today after they set off on 2 small dinghies this morning. A surge in channel crossings is expected this weekend as a heat wave hits the UK. 400 migrants were recorded making the journey yesterday. As tens of thousands of people get away for the bank holiday weekend, French authorities have reportedly suspended new EU border checks at the port of Dover after delays reached up to 5 hours. Traffic is now moving again. Well, it comes as a heatwave hits the UK with temperatures expected to be hotter than the Seychelles today, with highs of 30 degrees in the south of England. At least 90 people have been killed in an explosion at a mine in the Jiangxi province in northern China, with officials warning that number expected to rise. Those are the latest headlines. More in half an hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Thank you, Tatiana. Remember, let me know your thoughts on all the stories we've been discussing today by going to gbnews.com/your say and join the conversation, or scan the QR code on the screens now. There's lots more coming up on this show. The new leader of Bradford City Council has written to the chair of the independent inquiry into grooming gangs to ask for the entire area to be included in the national inquiry, because they promised they'll do their own independent inquiry if it doesn't happen. All of that and more to come. I'm Christopher Hope, in for Dawn Neeson, and you're watching GB News, and we are, of course, because of you, Britain's #1 news channel.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Certainly is shaping up to be quite the sunny weekend for many of us, all courtesy of an area of high pressure that's building in across the UK. There are a few frontal systems around at the moment to start off Saturday. We've seen some cloud clearing off the far southeast of England, and also be aware there'll be some cloud lingering around coastal areas of Wales and the southwest of England, may provide some sea fog and murky conditions in places, but much of England and Wales will hold on to bright sunny skies. And with that though, we are going to see pollen levels rising. We are entering the grass pollen season now, so hay fever sufferers be aware, and UV levels are also going to be quite high. Top temperatures of today around London, over towards Kent, potential for our first 30 degrees Celsius of the day, but widely into the low to mid-20s for many. That other front in the northwest is bringing a touch more cloud for Northern Ireland and Scotland, still around 20 degrees Celsius for parts of Aberdeen and eastern areas, but perhaps a few spots of rain for the Highlands and over the hills here, and temperatures around 13 or 14 degrees Celsius, which is a touch closer towards average for the time of year. Quite breezy in the northwest as well, with that frontal system in play, and the cloud will linger here throughout the night, the rain perhaps turning a bit more persistent. But for much other areas, it is going to be a clear night to come. A few mist and fog patches forming in places, but skies should be pretty clear throughout. Temperatures are a bit of a mix between rural and urban areas. In rural regions, we may drop down into mid-single figures, but most of us in our towns and cities starting off in double digits on Sunday morning. And it's widespread blue skies for the vast majority of us into this second day of the bank holiday weekend. Plenty of fine conditions if you want to get outside, the exception once again being the far northwest of Scotland, where that rain is going to persist right throughout the day and again hold those temperatures back. But temperatures climbing up a little further now in the southeast towards 31 degrees Celsius. There's plenty more sunshine on the cards throughout into Bank Holiday Monday and next week, including now for northern Scotland, and those temperatures really peaking as we head into Monday. Bye-bye.
5 hosts.
5 opinions.
5 fearless debates. 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the...
Unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Weekend with me, Christopher Hope, in for Dawn Neeson. Now, the new leader of Bradford City Council has written to the chair of the independent inquiry into the grooming gangs to ask for the entire area to be included in its national inquiry. Councillor Stephen Place has said that if Baroness Longfield doesn't include Bradford District, then the council will undertake all steps necessary to begin the process of an independent inquiry. Joining me now is a Tory MP for Keighley and Ilkley, Robbie Moore, who's been campaigning for years on this issue. Robbie Moore, thank you for joining us. Why is the council doing this?
Because it's the right thing for them to do. And I'm very pleased that Councillor Place has got behind my long-standing calls for having a spotlight, an independent investigation, an inquiry across Keighley and the wider Bradford district, and has written to Baroness Longfield, who is the independent chair of the National Grooming Gangs Inquiry, to make sure that Bradford is included as part of that inquiry. So I very much welcome that move, following the letter which I sent to him that was co-signed by Fiona Goddard. I think that's popping up on your screen now, and also David Greenwood, who is a leading child abuse lawyer in the Bradford district.
And this is a Reform Council, of course, doing this. Is there any kind of a political play here, or is it just purely let's get the justice for these poor victims in the area, and if they won't do it nationally, we'll do it instead?
Well, look, this shouldn't be about politics at all. This should be about the difference between calling out what is right and what is wrong. We have known that child sexual exploitation, gang-related grooming, the rape gang scenario has taken place across the Bradford district, including Keighley, for far, far too long. I have openly said that I'm fearful that the scale of the issue across the Bradford district will dwarf that of Rotherham, Rochdale, Telford, and anywhere else that has had the local inquiries previously. So it is the right thing for the leader of the council to do. It is incredibly frustrating that previous administrations running Bradford Council have not done that. But I welcome Councillor Place in calling on Anne Longfield and the Home Secretary to get behind this, because it is the right thing to do.
And other council areas too should do the same. We know there'll be 4 council areas looked at by Anne Longfield's inquiry. So should other councils who aren't included in the national inquiry copy Bradford's example?
Yes, absolutely. Look, I'm lucky enough to sit on the Home Affairs Select Committee, and we had Baroness Longfield in front of our Select Committee earlier in the week. And I put those very points to her because I'm deeply concerned that the government have capped the cost at £65 million. I do not think that that is giving the inquiry the flexibility to have as many local inquiries that fall under the umbrella of the national inquiry as possible. We will hear from Baroness Longfield in a month or so to come on which local areas will be first announced in the first tranche. Yes. I hope that Bradford will be included upon that. I don't understand quite why Baroness Longfield is not able to announce Bradford right now, as I would expect that she could do so. But yes, I would absolutely expect and hope that all other local inquiries come forward.
And Robbie Moore, when I met Anne Longfield and her 2 deputies, I was very impressed by them. I think this inquiry had a troubled start, no question, last year, but the government appears to have found 3 women who will do right by the victims.
And the victims and survivors need to be at the heart of this.
Absolutely.
I'm sure that Baroness Longfield and her team will make sure that that is the case with the terms of reference that they have set out, and indeed on which areas that she decides to focus on. We all want Bradford and Keighley to be part of that initially to get going. But I am convinced that Baroness Longfield will use all of the tools available to her to make sure that all aspects, local areas are explored as best as they can.
They do appear independent. That when we met them in a city law firm, away from the government, away from the Home Office. In terms of Bradford, though, who will pay for this? Will any more money come from central government? The 65 million, I imagine, is earmarked for the 4 inquiries in the national inquiry planned by Anne Longfield. So if Bradford's outside that, who's going to pay for their own inquiry?
Well, no, this needs to be paid for by central government, and this needs to fall underneath the umbrella of the national inquiry with those terms of reference that have been set, and therefore Baroness Longfield needs to adopt Bradford District as part of one of those local areas that will be included as part of the national inquiry. I haven't heard the figure of being limited to 4 inquiries. I hope that there'll be much more than that. That's certainly not what was given as evidence to us as the Home Affairs Select Committee. Okay. So I'd be pushing for much wider focus beyond just 4 areas. But again, as I've reiterated, ever since getting elected 6 years ago, Bradford District and Keighley must form part of that.
But forgive me, if it's more than 4, that's what was in my mind when I last met them. It may be more than 4, and I hope it is more than 4, frankly. And indeed, if you heard a little different from the Baroness last week, that's to be applauded, because it needs to be as national as possible, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, and I know that Charlie Peters and many others have done great work on this, and have highlighted the fact that there could be up to, if not more than 50 locations, 50 towns across the country, which definitely need to be explored. And I would encourage any local authority to come forward and request, in fact demand, that if they feel that there is a need for their areas to also be included as part of that national inquiry, as Bradford have done, rightly so.
No question. For too long, it's been ignored. Robbie Moore, great work campaigning locally. I know how hard you're pushing on this. It's not a political issue. It's all about the victims. And I know that's what drives you. Great to see you on a hot day today, Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, speaking to that same Home Affairs Committee that Robbie Moore was talking about Bradford this week, Baroness Longfield said this: the Bradford case is obviously strongly made by victims and survivors over time. In the Casey audit, in the ICSA, which is the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse Inquiry, in Opposition Dales Way, we're fully aware of the case that's been made, and it's a strong case. And of course, we look forward to hearing what Baroness Longfield decides on in coming weeks. Remember, let me know your thoughts on all the stories we've been discussing by going to gbnews.com/your say and join the conversation, or scan the QR on the right of your screen you can see right now. Now it's time for the Great British Giveaway. There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win a whopping £76,543 and 21p. Imagine how many paddling pools that could buy. That's all in tax-free cash in time for summer. Here's the details you need to have your chance to make a play for that money.
£76,543 and 21p in tax-free cash could be yours this summer. That's totally tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. What would you spend it on? Treat the family and friends to the ultimate summer party, or just relax with enough cash in the bank to make this year your best yet. And remember, because it's totally tax-free cash, you'll get to keep every single penny. So what are you waiting for? For a chance to win £76,543 and 21p in tax-free cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Heathrow, Derby, DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
You're with me, Christopher Hope, on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. The MCC, the Marylebone Cricket Club in Lords, has dispensed with its strict dress code there. Shirts leave order at the home of cricket as Britain swelters in a bank holiday heatwave. But for now, if you're in search of some holiday sun on the continent, and frankly, why bother? It's hot here. Here's the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
A lot of sunny and hot weather across the Med and Western Europe at the moment, especially for Spain and France. Very showery, however, with low pressure close to Greece and Turkey. Long spells of rain for Turkey. Greek islands mostly sheltered from the showers, but heavy downpours for mainland Greece. 1 or 2 showers for Italy. But we come to Iberia and France, and it's unusually hot and sunny during the next few days. Temperatures peaking in France into the mid to high 30s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
The Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christies tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We should be almost banned.
Do you really?
I really do, because and then you just let the listener or the viewer find their own a take on it and their own opinion about it.
Right.
I really don't like at Olympic Games. I really don't like the sort of cheerleading and showboating and the we this, we that, we the other.
So you're not the USA.
I'm sorry.
That much
No,
fun,
it's Britain. Britain are third in the medals table. Not we are third in the medals table.
Right.
I think.
Okay, and how does everybody react to that? Is everybody... Because I must admit, I do quite like the we thing.
I don't.
Okay. Tell me about favourite sporting events, because I'd imagine London 2012 must be the greatest thing you've been involved in, right?
Yeah, it absolutely was. I mean, I've been very lucky across, a whole load of things. I mean, one of my... You always remember the things, you always remember the first time. To be in the Olympics in Seoul in '88.
Yeah.
And to see Ben Johnson win the 100 metres, and then the furore off the back of that, when with the possible exception of Lance Armstrong, the biggest drug scandal in the history of sport. I mean, that was an amazing.
So were you covering that at the time, that race
for BBC Radio? Yeah.
So at what point did you know about this? Because now it's known as the dirtiest race of all time, isn't it? But at the time, this man had broken the world record. He was the greatest sprinter anybody had ever seen, and it was such a huge story.
The most amazing thing about it was I can't remember how big the crowd was, but in my head it was like 90. 100,000.
Yeah.
And when he crossed the line and you saw on the electronic scoreboard what time he'd done, you've never heard 100,000 people be so quiet and then be so loud, because the reaction was just... that's not possible. A bit like, running under 2 hours for a marathon.
Yeah.
And then, of course, so we all thought this is just extraordinary and beyond belief.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to stop. We can allow.
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the weekend with me, Christopher Hope. Now, before we move on, a huge thank you to my friend and colleague Dawn Neeson for letting me host her programme today. She's celebrating her mum's 85th birthday. There she is on social media. Dawn will, of course, be back next week, so no one panic. Now, if you thought summer had arrived early, you'd be right. Britain is set for a scorching bank holiday weekend with temperatures climbing to the low 30s, with experts warning Monday could become the hottest May day ever recorded in the UK. Amber heat alerts are now in place as millions prepare for a proper sun-soaked getaway weekend. GB News' Tara Goodsell has been asking members of the public how they're enjoying the sun.
Really enjoy it. I mean, we don't get it very often, do we? So we've got to make the most of it.
I won't be out and about too much, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big lover of the heat.
I've got water with me and I've got suntan lotion, so yeah, I think it's fine.
It probably will be too hot later, yes. And then we'll just have to retire to a bar and stay there for the rest of the evening.
Officials, really? I mean, yeah, it's crazy. It's pretty crazy. I mean, it does get a bit hot. You do not want to get into the tube. But yeah, you do enjoy it. I think past 28, 29 degrees, it gets a bit unbearable. But overall, I do enjoy it, yeah.
Joining me now is meteorologist, Square Raindrop, Joe Wheeler. Joe, thank you for joining us. I note in today's Telegraph that last time things were this hot on a late May bank holiday, Britain was at war in 1944. Are these historic temperatures?
Well, yes, they are. You're right. 1944, 32.8, the hottest ever recorded May Day, or day in May. And yes, we could well exceed that. Just in the last hour or so, we've seen 30.2 down in Kent. It is the southeast that's likely to see the highest temperatures today. And then the focus of the heat starts to move through southernmost counties, then up towards the west, Bristol and Gloucester, later in the week as this high pressure starts to move. But it's going to be lovely for just about everywhere, eventually. At the moment, Scotland and Northern Ireland, some western parts of Wales and the southwest, still quite cool, around 11 degrees Celsius only in the cloud. Spots of rain over parts of Scotland as well. That will be confined there over the next few days. So slightly mixed fortunes, but eventually this high pressure gets rid of the cloud, gets rid of the rain. We'll all see sunshine and those higher temperatures. But we also start to see a breeze setting in along eastern coasts. So a little bit more comfortable there, let's put it that way. But yes, we could actually break the record for the hottest ever bank holiday, set in Heathrow, 2019, 33.3, and that was in August.
Well, look, Joe Wheeler, thank you for joining us today. You've been with me, Christopher Hope, on GB News. I'm off to put my swimming trunks on and take off this hot suit. Thanks for watching wherever you are. That's it from me, but here comes Nana Akua with a great show. What's coming up, Nana?
Thank you very much, Chris. It's Nana Akua, though, like queer, if you see what I mean. But thank you very much. Look, we've got a very, very busy show for you. Kira Ruddock, she will be here live in the studio. Yes, she's from Ukraine. She'll be telling us in difficult conversations all about what's going on there with the war. Plus, Dr. Amar Khan. Remember, I had that cancer blood test. He'll be back with the results and what I should do next, and to give you an idea of exactly what cancer is, how it kind of spreads, and how perhaps you can help to prevent yourself from actually getting cancer, as it were. Plus, I'm asking, is there any party or any government that could actually stop the boats? Because today it's a hottie and they're on their way to the UK in their droves. Brilliant panel, the lovely Lizzie Cundy and also Paul Roberts. But first, let's get an update with your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Certainly is shaping up to be quite the sunny weekend for many of us, all courtesy of an area of high pressure that's building in across the UK. There are a few frontal systems around at the moment to start off Saturday. We've seen some cloud clearing off the far southeast of England, and also be aware there'll be some cloud lingering around coastal areas of Wales and the southwest of England, may provide some sea fog and murky conditions in places. But much of England and Wales will hold on to bright sunny skies. And with that though, we are going to see pollen levels rising. We are entering the grass pollen season now, so hay fever sufferers be aware, and UV levels are also going to be quite high. Top temperatures of today around London, over towards Kent, potential for our first 30 degrees Celsius of the day, but widely into the low to mid-20s for many. That other front in the northwest is bringing a touch more cloud for Northern Ireland and Scotland, still around 20 degrees Celsius for parts of Aberdeen and eastern areas, but perhaps a few spots of rain for the Highlands and over the hills here, and temperatures around 13 or 14 degrees Celsius, which is a touch closer towards average for the time of year. Quite breezy in the northwest as well, with that frontal system